Okay, thank you for waiting. The president has asked me to come out and make a brief statement about the wire that just went out a couple minutes ago. To make things short, I will just confirm that yes, we do have a moon base, and yes, we are currently experiencing some bear problems. Now, I will open it up if there are any questions.
Mr. Press Secretary! Mr. Press Secretary! Mr. Press Secretary!
New York Times.
Yes. I have a 11-part question.
I'm sorry, I only have time for 2.
All right, let me get this straight. So the United States government is admitting that we do have a moon base and that there is a bear problem on said moon base.
Yes, that is correct.
All right, follow-up question. Are you us?
That's a really good question.
No, we are not, and I would like to remind everyone to keep the language civilized. This is the White House.
Excuse me, Mr. Secretary, Bob Daniels, Newsweek.
Mr. Daniels.
How long have we had the moon base? And are these bears Earth bears, or are they from the moon?
I'm sorry, I'm not at liberty to disclose how long we have had this moon base at this time. We do believe these to be Earth bears. We have no reason to believe these to be lunar bears or even Saturn bears.
Todd Albright, PBS. There's Saturn bears?
I am also not at liberty to go into the various types of woodland life forms on Saturn or any of the other 12 planets.
9 planets.
Right. I've said too much already. What I can show you is the images that have been beamed down to us from the Odyssey satellite system just a couple hours ago. This is the view out of the front door of the United States secret moon base. This was taken yesterday before we discovered the bear problem. And this one was taken just a couple hours ago. So, as you can see, bears everywhere.
Mr. Press Secretary! Mr. Press Secretary! Mr. Secretary!
Mr. Jackson.
Yeah, those bears appear to have guns and motorcycles.
We believe they may be involved in some sort of intergalactic drug cartel, perhaps affiliated with one of the interstellar wizard alliances.
Wizard alliances?
Yes, next question.
Just a thought, more of a shot in the dark, but we wouldn't happen to be invading Iran today, would we?
You got me. You got
I fell for it. You almost got away with that one.
me. No, I went too far.
We are coming at you live from Amsterdam on the 21st of February 2026. What I just played there is an old skit from many years ago. I think it's from 8 years ago, from Whitest Kids You Know. Of course, the skit is very relevant to the situation on this very nice, lovely day. Reason being that, it looks like we're about to attack Iran in a few days. And just like that, just like the skit went, President Donald Trump on the same day announces that aliens exist and that he's going to start releasing files that prove that. Strange time to be alive, as I always say. It's almost satirical. I mean, people used to write comedy sketches around the situations that we're living through today on the daily. In case you haven't heard, Donald Trump is convinced that aliens exist and he's going to start releasing files to prove it. I think they already released one image. Of course, it just happens to coincide with the weekend where we will most likely go to war with Iran. Anyways, we have a lot to cover on today's live stream. I just want to say real quick that this is the Eurozone broadcast. We are based in Amsterdam, so we like to follow European news mainly, but we also follow news around the whole world. We're an explicitly leftist podcast, or broadcast, I should say. So if you're looking for any news source that is unbiased, without a Western spin, without a pro-imperialist spin, then this is your place to go. And we are completely independent. We are not funded by anyone. So we have no advertisers, no sponsors, no state backing. And we don't even take donations. So this is completely for free. If you do like what you hear, feel free to subscribe. We have all the social media channels that you already know. So you can find us basically on any platform. So on today's agenda, we're going to be talking about the Epstein files again, I know, but there's always more things coming out of there. We won't look through everything. We did that already on a previous live stream. What we're going to look at specifically are the top diplomats in Norway, some of which were instrumental in planning and negotiating the Oslo Accords back in 1993. The Oslo Accords, of course, are the peace treaty signed between the Israelis and the Palestinians, brokered by the top Norwegian diplomats. And now we know that those same Norwegian diplomats were very close to Jeffrey Epstein, and one of them indeed said that Jeffrey Epstein was his lifelong best friend. So yeah, that's quite interesting. To discuss that, I will be joined by Alex Jørgensen, who is a Norwegian journalist. So he'll be joining us in about an hour to discuss that topic. On top of that, we also have, we're going to talk with Alex about Palestine, about Lebanon, and about the situation between Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Iran, and what we can expect to see in these coming days. Because as I just said at the opening of this broadcast, we are expecting the Americans to attack Iran at any given moment. Historically, they always do that on Fridays or Saturdays, so it could quite literally be while I am live here on the broadcast. What else? We also have South America. Let's see if we get to that topic. It depends how long we talk with Alex for. But I would like to go into Cuba, Argentina, and Venezuela. Of course, the American regime is starving Cuba again. This is nothing new. They have tried to sabotage these poor people for generations at this point, but now they're doing a complete blockade, meaning that there's no fuel or food available in Cuba, basically going after the Gaza starvation strategy in order to start a regime change domino effect. And on the other hand, you know, Cuba being a socialist government, on the other extreme, you have the Argentinian economy not doing very well. They just received a bailout a few months ago from Donald Trump to the tune of, I think it was 500 million or 500 billion. I'm not sure, but we'll get into that. And of course, now Milei, the anarcho-capitalist president of Argentina, has made a labor reform where companies are allowed to pay their employees with housing and food instead of real money. And all of that while allowing the standard workday to be up to 12 hours long, which is 4 hours longer than used to be the case under Argentinian law. Of course, we also have some updates from Venezuela and so on. So yeah, we have a lot to talk about. Unfortunately, I only do this broadcast every 2 weeks, so the topics always pile up and I have to choose which ones to prioritize. If you want to be part of that decision making, by the way, you can do so by following me on Instagram. I always reach out there and ask people what they want to hear. And also here at the start of the show, feel free to send me topics that you think are interesting. I'm also going to just go through a few small things that unfortunately didn't make it into the cut because there's not enough time, but that I just thought like as a standalone clip would be nice to review here on the live. So yeah, I'm gonna start with just a little bit lighthearted before we get into the gruesome stuff. We have an interesting clip around Charlie Kirk. I know it's a bit old news, but yeah, his wife has been moving mad, and I just thought this clip here was explaining the whole situation, summarizing it quite well. So let me give you that one here. Let me restart that because I had no audio on it. Here we go.
Won Trump's Miss Arizona pageant. Her parents are both from military intelligence family. Her dad did Raytheon arms deals with Israel, probably unrelated. And Erica Kirk was part of running an orphanage in Romania where children went missing. Enough children for Romania to permanently ban.
Yeah, so very interesting how everyone on the far right in America seems to somehow, or at least in the far right institutions of America, seem to somehow be tied into Israel and kidnapping children. In this case, Erica Kirk's controversy is that she ran an orphanage in Romania where kids kept disappearing. So many that indeed the Romanian government eventually closed it down.
Ban the orphanage and permanently ban Erica Kirk. Do you know how up you gotta be to get banned in Romania? Andrew Tate is the mayor there. You really gotta push some boundaries. Mind you, this is when Epstein was still active, so I'll let you connect the dots. By the way, I'm not suicidal. For the record, I am quite happy, okay? You heard it here. But the weirdest thing about Erica Kirk, she met Charlie Kirk not on Christian Mingle. She went in to interview at his company, Turning Point USA. He said that he fell in love right away. Now, 4 years later, he's dead. And she has now inherited Turning Point USA. She's doing podcasts on it too. Like, I'm so excited. Like, to my future wife, please wait 2 months after I die before doing a podcast. 3 months if it's my own. Come on. When you look at how fast she moved on, and then you look at how it started and how it ended, how it started was not romance. How it started was her going in for a job, and how it ended was her getting a promotion. So I'm just saying. It was probably Tyler.
Yeah, it doesn't look good. It doesn't
Erica
look good for the Kirk family. Quite tragic, if you ask me. I think the clip spoke for itself a bit. It's just always strange, when you look at some of these establishment right-wing families, how they operate and how they move. Yeah, it's very clear there's very little humanity there. It's all about everyone is a shark, everyone is just trying to climb this ladder, either in the private sector or in private companies that do media to protect the private sector. So quite interesting. We also have this one here, another clip from Bassem Youssef. If you don't know him, he's an absolute genius, one of the most eloquently spoken people right now out there, especially on the topics of Palestine, but also just politics in general. He gained a lot of popularity after moving to the US. He's originally from Egypt, and he just had this clip here that I have to share with you because it just it encapsulates so well how a lot of us right now, I think, are feeling about the whole Epstein, all of the Epstein files being released, and how the DOJ and the FBI and everyone else is doing nothing about it, and also how everyone is closing their eyes and pretending like they can't see the obvious connection to Israel. So have a look at this.
The FBI just dumped millions of unredacted or redacted Epstein files on the public and said, you know what, here you go, have fun. It's like a scavenger hunt. Like you expect, like it's kind of like a TikTok challenge. Can you find a pedophile? You have the FBI, you have the DOJ, you have unlimited resources, unlimited power, unlimited budgets. This is the biggest sex trafficking scandal in modern history. Billionaires, politicians, royalty, and all hanging out on Pedophile Island. And the US government responds like, hey guys, let the internet figure it out. What is this? A group project? Are you serious? You want me to do your job? You want some guy on Reddit cross-referencing flight logs at 2 a.m. while he's eating Cheetos? Like, you want TikTokers playing a game of Clue? Hey, it was Prince Andrew having a massage with the undergirl. What is this? It is not the job of private citizens to figure out clues. I don't understand. Is the FBI too busy to do their job? Here's what.
Of course, the FBI is not too busy to do their job. Their job, in case anyone is wondering, the job of the FBI in this case, because they work for the same people who are in the Epstein files, the job of the FBI is to release this, make sure that everyone is talking about it as much as possible so that it slowly becomes normalized, and eventually we accept this as just another thing that we allow the ruling class to get away with. We let them get away with genocide, we let them get away with climate change, we let them get away with a lot of things that are genuinely horrific for the working class and for children in general. So this is just another thing on top of the list that they're trying to normalize. And of course, they're never going to prosecute anyone for it because that goes against normalization. So the game of the FBI here is just to make sure that everyone on the internet is indeed looking at this and scavenging around for details, just like Bassem Youssef is saying here, while avoiding having to do any of that work themselves, right? Because that also means they get to hide certain figures until it is normalized, right? Just in case the people don't actually accept this and want some sort of justice, they can still, give plausible deniability to a few key players that they need to protect.
Should have happened. They should have released the name. They should have arrested predators. They should have held the trials. Like a functioning justice system, right? But instead you give us 4 million trillion documents with no index, no categorization, redactions everywhere. Then say, hey, Good luck with that, guys. Like, let us know if you find anything. Wallahi azim, not even a third world country dictatorship would do that to us. In third world countries, they would release nothing. Keep us in the dark, like a self-respected dictatorship. But this choose your own adventure bullshit, this like figure it out on your own. What kind of service is this? Like, I mean, the government takes half of my money so I can do its job and then sends the other half to Israel. I mean, this is just like dysfunctional. The FBI just...
Yeah, the government takes half of your money, sends it to the FBI and the military, who do absolutely nothing with that money, except doing intelligence operations that eventually come to hurt you as the working class, and the other half they send to Israel. That was very beautifully summarized by Bassem Youssef there. Let's see what else we have here at the start of the show. Oh yeah, we have this perfect clip from Iran. I was meant to play it at the end of the Iran video we did 2 weeks ago, but I simply just forgot to click on it. So I want to play this for you guys because, the whole thesis of what we talked about in the Iran episode is that although the Iranian people obviously have legitimate struggles that they are protesting for and legitimate aims in their protests, as a European or a Western citizen, we have to come to recognize that the things they're protesting against were directly manufactured and engineered by our governments, right? And the biggest one of that is, of course, the poverty and eventually the hunger that comes along with that poverty. This is something that has been engineered by the Americans in order to cause a regime change in Iran. And this is just more evidence to show that, of course, the Americans and the Europeans do not care about the Iranian people. And I wish I'd played this clip because when I'm saying it, you might think, okay, this is a leftist who's drawing lines between dots that can't really be connected. But thankfully, thanks to the Trump regime being so blatant nowadays, you don't have to take it from me. You can hear it directly from, I think this is the Treasury Secretary of the Trump administration. Yeah, the Treasury Secretary. So here you go from the devil's mouth himself.
At Treasury, and what we have done is created a dollar shortage in the country. At a speech at the Economic Club of New York in March, I outlined the strategy. It came to a swift and I would say grand culmination in December when one of the largest banks in Iran went under. There was a run on the bank. The central bank had to print money. The Iranian currency went into free fall. Inflation exploded, and hence we have seen the Iranian people out on the street. We will continue monitoring all the partners, all the Iranian partners. The good news, Senator, is that we have seen, and we can see it with our fencing. We have seen the Iranian leadership wiring money out of the country like crazy. So the rats are leaving the ship, and that is a good sign that they know the end may be near. What we can do at Treasury.
Yeah, so there you go. Basically saying that they are engineering a dollar shortage in Iran, which the whole dollar system, first and foremost, is forced upon the world. As in that the only currency you're allowed to trade in internationally is the US dollar. And the US dollar is, of course, manipulated and run by the American government. So whenever they need to create a humanitarian disaster in your country, for whatever reason, they can simply just create a dollar shortage, like this guy is bragging about doing in Iran. He's taking credit for it, and he's doing so proudly, and saying that this is directly causing some of the rats, in his word, to leave the nest. And when he talks about rats, he means, of course, the Iranian leadership. But everyone who gets caught in the middle of that, who are really suffering, are not the Iranian leadership who have money to transfer out of the country. It is the people who no longer have food, who no longer have a currency that is worth anything. So your economy and your ability to interact with products on the market gets completely eliminated, right? You go out and you can't buy anything. So it's not just a shortage of one thing or another, it's just a shortage of economy in general. And it's an absolute shame that this is being manufactured in Iran and hurting their people. So of course I understand that people will protest when it gets to that point, but let's be clear, we are the ones who created that, we here in Europe and the US. I also found this clip. I'm not sure I should play it because it's a bit goofy, to be honest. Yeah, I think I'll skip this one. It was just I won't even mention it. Yeah, well, let's continue with the devastating news, shall we? This is another clip that I didn't really know where to include it, but I just thought it would be good to mention here at the start of the show. And this is the last one of these clips that I'll show before we get into the serious topics. So here you go.
Nazis, your law is going to punish me. Israeli Channel 10 reported in March of 2014 that Israel has the largest human skin bank in the world. Where do you think they got all this skin from? They have more human skin than China and India. They are literally skinning the dead bodies of my brothers and sisters in Palestine. That's where they are getting the human skin from. And if I call them Nazis, your law is going to punish me. And if
I believe he's speaking there in Germany, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure. He might be talking in the US, but in any case, what he's referencing there is the fact that Israel has the Guinness World Record, which they achieved officially, by the way, verified by the Guinness World Record. They achieved this just a few weeks ago. And what is the record for? The most amount of organs harvested for organ transplant and donation. Now, the question is, how can a country which is nowhere near the largest country in the world have that many organs stored? And as this man here is also describing, how can they at the same time have the world record for the biggest skin bank in the world, human skin, when it is a small country and when the people in that country are predominantly very religious and against this sort of organ and skin donation, right? There's a lot of respect for dead bodies in the Israeli culture. So the answer to that is, of course, that they are skinning and harvesting organs from Palestinians, which they have recently killed as part of this genocide. But not only that, also in the concentration camps they have, used to be prisons, now turned into concentration camps, where they arrest people from Jerusalem, from the West Bank, and of course from Gaza as well, and just keep them without trial under military courts, where there is no right to self-defense. And in these prisons, they torture you to death. Now they have officially begun the death penalty in these Israeli concentration camps, meaning that I think over 500 Palestinians are on death row, expecting to be killed soon. And once they get killed, against their consent, against the wishes of their family, they harvest their organs and their skin in order to achieve these record-breaking skin and organ banks. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. This is, I think, speaks for itself. If I have to explain to you why this is brutal, then I think we have a few conversations to talk about first before we can even have a normal conversation. So, yeah, that's just the random bits and pieces that I picked up from the internet over the last few weeks, over the last 2 weeks, and I just wanted to share that with you before we get into the main part of the broadcast. So the first thing I want to talk about, it's going to be a little bit of a shorter one. I made a video which did quite well on Instagram, explaining a little bit about why they released the Epstein files. As you know, I also uploaded some days ago a full YouTube video going into what I call Epstein paralysis, which I think a lot of people are going through. Basically getting stuck because you don't quite understand why they're being so brazen and almost bragging about their crimes. And you also don't really know how to respond, because so many of the people that we thought we could rely on, for example, the social democrats in Europe, in Scandinavia, for example, Noam Chomsky, all of these left-wing figures are also implicated in the files. The list of perpetrators of criminals in these files is just so broad that it it makes you stutter, right? You're like, okay, I don't know what to do next. So in order to answer that, I created a video that basically explains why they're releasing all these files. And yeah, we're gonna get into that in a second here. I see a few people coming into the live stream, so feel free to drop a message if you're here, and if you want to talk about anything before we start the proper segments, let me know. Yeah, so the first bit here is going to be about Epstein. Just give me a moment. I think, yeah, let's just jump into it because we have so many different topics to cover. So let me start recording here and we'll get into it. The DOJ has dropped 3 million Epstein files over 2 weeks ago now, and in the meantime, no one is really being prosecuted except for a few fall guys. And a lot of people on the internet are talking about it, and are talking about it in a bit of a confused way. You know, what is the point of releasing all of the evidence of one's crimes? Let's not forget that the same establishment which is releasing these files, the same president which is heading the DOJ, are all implicated in the same files that they are releasing. So what is the point of this self-incriminating evidence being distributed everywhere? And all of our algorithms on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, and so on, are obviously pushing and allowing for people to talk about it, right? So it's clear that this is not an area that's being censored. When they want to censor something, they simply censor it. You know, all of the platform owners, all of the algorithm lords are the same people or friends with the same people who are in the files. So why, what is the point of releasing this and having everyone talking about it so relentlessly? You know, I live in Europe, and even in Europe, a lot of people are talking about it. In the US, I think basically everyone is. Even people from older generations know what's going on. So you might have a feeling that no one is talking about it, or that no one knows about it, but that's not true. Much like the Gaza genocide, everybody knows about it. It's just simply that we live in a society where these things are accepted. So what do I mean by this? I think let's start just by one of Jeffrey Epstein's close associates. This is Jess Staley. And I just want to show you what they say to each other in these emails, to start with, as an example of the logic that they have here, or the logic that they use to control the working class. So this is an email to Jeffrey Epstein from Jess Staley, and it says, "You want to know why we are not Sao Paulo? Watch the TV ads on the Super Bowl." So right away, like, you always have to give a lot of context here when reading these Jeffrey Epstein emails, because they talk about a lot of different topics at once, and they also cross-reference a lot of inside knowledge. So at the time, in 2014, Sao Paulo, you know, was having a lot of groundwork, grassroots movements fighting against corruption, fighting against the right-wing elites. So he's saying basically, do you want to know why we in the US are not seeing a grassroots revolt like we are seeing in Sao Paulo? And he says the reason is on the TV ads for the Super Bowl. It's all about hip blacks in hip cars with white women. The group that should be in the streets has been bought off by Jay-Z. And Jay-Z was also in the files. So what is he saying here? Let me translate. Why are the people of the US not revolting like they do in other places when we treat them like shit? Sorry, I'm not supposed to swear on this broadcast, but it's a bit difficult. And he's saying it's because we pump this culture out and we utilize figures and corrupt figures like Jay-Z. You know, Jay-Z, who in his early days was anti-police brutality, very much part of the legacy, you know, the revolutionary Black Panther legacy that bled into hip-hop culture in the early 80s and 90s. He was kind of in line with that when he first launched his career, but as his time goes on, he becomes one of the rich people. He doesn't do anything to change the system. He just becomes one of the tyrants in the system, and he helps push this narrative through the Super Bowl ads which trick the people, right? In this case, he's talking about black people in America, particularly those groups, of people that should be very mad at the system, trick them into pursuing self-aggrandizement and selfish routes rather than bettering the life of their community, right? Pushing this idea that you should not seek solidarity for your common people who are being oppressed, but instead you should escape your unfortunate circumstances by pursuing the capitalist dream, buying cars, filling them with women. There's also obviously some patriarchal subliminal messaging there, so that one day you can become like Jay-Z and join the Jeffrey Epstein club, right? And this is how they talk about this this topic within themselves when they're when the elites, the Epstein class, are discussing why no one is revolting against them. They're saying that it's because pop culture has successfully hypnotized all of us to chase paper rather than solidarity, and to chase careers rather than community love, and all of these things. So you have to understand, right? He's saying we are already discriminating and brutalizing the black community in the U.S. To an extreme amount, but they are not revolting because we have pacified them, right? We have convinced them to be selfish rather than to go for community. Obviously, that's not completely true. I don't speak for the black community here. I think historically, to this day, they're one of the strongest, most politically active groups. But of course, they have not been able to lead a successful revolution. The Black Panthers, Martin Luther King Jr., all of these people, while they did achieve some progress, never were able to change the root issues, the root causes of their of the misery and the discrimination that black people go through. And it's not because they were not aware, right? The Black Panthers and Martin Luther King were obviously very active in the ideology of socialism, but they never got the support from the people needed to implement this, and were obviously there was also obviously a lot of work from the CIA and so on to make sure that didn't happen. In any case, this is just to give you an example of how they are able to pacify the masses into accepting certain conditions that would otherwise, you would think, be unacceptable, right? Living as a permanent third-class citizen, being forced into poverty after being enslaved and brought away from your home country into a new system where you are nothing but a slave, and then after that you're nothing but a third-class citizen, and still managing to make people accept that, is the same thing that they're going to do with the crimes shown in the Epstein files. So even though right now it seems absolutely gruesome, don't forget that there was that they've already done the same with many different things before, right? For example, most recently, or not even that recent anymore because it's been going on for nearly 3 years now, but we have the Gaza genocide, which started on October 7, 2023. Well, not even that. If you want to talk Palestine, we can go back to 1947, 1917, right? How many generations of Europeans have grown up seeing pictures before we had cell phones? It was on the news or in books, but seeing pictures of fathers holding their dead children and been able to normalize it and eventually accept it as just part of the system. Our parents and our grandparents did not revolt and change the government and change the system when they saw the child casualties in Palestine. And now in our generation, they ramped it up even more. They're committing a full-blown genocide. We see the very real human lives affected by the genocide every day on our screens, on our Instagram, on YouTube. Even I'm talking about it here today, and we don't care. We are able to accept it as a normal part of our everyday existence. And there's even some things that are even lower on the ladder. At least Palestine got a little bit of protest and a little bit of voice to it, right? But the microphone here, the camera, the laptop that I use, all of it has components and metals that are that are mined for in sub-Saharan Africa, where, you know, in Congo, also Sudan, see some of this. A lot of the resources are being mined by children under slave-like conditions. You know, you have coal mining as well. There's so many parts of our household goods that come to us and are given to us as a service through slavery, through child slavery in particular, even the chocolate we eat, right? So all of these things, which if you were to see it right in front of you, or if the world only had 10 people in it, you would immediately go, hey, stop, you know, forcing that child to go to work every day under terrible conditions to mine minerals in the ground. You know, all of these horrible things have become accepted into society, and we all wear the clothes, we all drive the cars, we all use the cell phones, which are a result of those gruesome conditions. And likewise with the genocide in Gaza, you know, we all understand that in order to protect our status in the world as a European and American superpower, sometimes you need to commit genocide. And if we all need to look at it on our Instagram feeds, that's okay. And likewise, they're also going to say, yeah, part of living in a capitalist society where money equates to power is that if you get enough money, you have the power to do everything you want, including the murder, the cannibalism, and the rape of children. It sounds disgusting to say, but I mean, if we're gonna accept it as a normal part of society, at least we can say it out loud, you know. And they basically want you to see this so much that you get desensitized to it until you stop caring. And this is not the first time we've had like a very similar case of a bunch of documents leaking, which should be groundbreaking and, you know, break society and break the social contract. We had the Panama Papers that were released 8 years ago, and we're very much in the same situation now with the Epstein files as we were with the Panama Papers back then. So if you don't know, the Panama Papers were basically a huge compiling of documents, black and white documents, which proved and showed in detail how the rich people, the capitalist owning class of all countries of the world, have all of their money in offshore accounts, right? When I'm saying it now, by the way, I'm realizing it sounds like I'm talking about something. It's like, why are you even bringing this up? We all know in 2026 that, of course, if you make enough money, you put it in an offshore account and you don't pay taxes. Like, this is a given in society. But there was a time where that too was not normalized, where if you said this out loud, you were branded a conspiracy theorist, or people would lie to your face and tell you that that is not happening. And that was the time before the Panama Papers, you know, where only crazy socialist leftists on YouTube would talk about this idea that rich people have escaped our economic system and are not contributing to it at all. They're not paying taxes. They simply have created their own financial system outside of our democratic economies. And when these papers came out, it was meant to be groundbreaking, you know, because it proved that the work system that we dedicate our lives to by working 8 hours a day for 60 years of our life is basically a sham. That this idea that the top people pay taxes a little more than the rest of us so that we can all live in a society, and therefore it's okay to give some of our excess value that we create at work to our bosses, to our managers, to the owners, more importantly, of the companies, because then those owners will pay more in tax back, and it will eventually circle back into the betterment of society. That whole idea was proven false, and still nothing really happened. In fact, this lady here that is being held up in this vigil, in this photograph, is the lady who reported, the madam who reported on the Panama Papers. And where is she now? Well, she's dead. She was murdered in a car explosion, I believe in Malta. Her name is Daphne Caruana Galicia, and she was murdered for the crime of journalism, for reporting on the fact that the rich people don't pay taxes. And the killer, by the way, I mean, they arrested 2 random guys, or I think 3 random guys from Malta, who planted the bomb and set up the system where they could call the bomb in the car and then via cell phone detonate the bomb, thus killing her. But obviously these are just henchmen, right? Whoever does the killing is just a pretty low level criminal. The person who ordered the hit, who put the money behind it, and who made sure that it happened was never arrested, and we never got an official story for that. So in case you're wondering where we're going to be in 2 or 3 years time, now that we know about the Epstein files, now that we know what our elites are up to, I think it's going to be a repetition of history, basically repeating the situation of the Panama Papers. Yeah. I think I will also use a second example, which is a little more direct. You might not know this, but we actually in Europe had a very similar case to Jeffrey Epstein already once before. And it was this guy in Belgium who was completely who was trafficking a lot of children, right? And eventually he got caught, but I think it took more than 30 years for him to get caught. Yeah, so he was arrested in 1989. He was let go again in 1992, and then he was finally convicted for his crimes against children in 2004. So you can see there how it took 25 years to arrest this serial child abuser. And how nothing really changed inside of Belgium. And much like the Panama Papers, although this guy eventually was arrested after 25 years, the people he was servicing by kidnapping those children and trafficking those children, those people were never convicted, and the whole class around him was never broken up. And we just in Belgium and in Europe kind of accepted this as normal. So I'm gonna play this clip here that summarizes the that whole saga in Belgium quite well. Here we go.
1990s, 300,000 people in Belgium got out into the streets to protest the government's handling of a pedophile ring cover-up. Yes, this is true. So this is Marc Dutroux. He was the fall guy for this pedophile ring. He's like the Jeffrey Epstein of Europe. Yes, he kidnapped a lot of these girls. He molested a lot of these young girls. He was definitely a sadistic, evil pedophile himself, but he was kind of like the fall guy for the organization. In fact, there were a number of prominent members of society in Belgium that were implicated in this, all the way up to the king and queen.
So there you go. This guy here that you see on your screen is the only guy who gets arrested, and as I told you, it took more than 25 years for him to finally see prison time after abusing all of these children that you see. And that was with mass protests happening in the country. But the people he was servicing, including the royal families of Belgium, never saw their day in court.
The royal monarchy. And apparently these pedophile parties were being held at these chateaus, these isolated, old money, luxurious castles tucked away in the woods. And there were children that survived these activities that described snuff films, human hunting parties.
In case you don't know, by the way, I have to lightly remind you here that it's not just sexual crimes. They are releasing these kids into forests and hunting them for sport. Just like they did in Serbia, in Yugoslavia, when there was the siege, just like they're doing in Palestine and Gaza. If you live in the West, it's surprisingly easy to go to Israel and start hunting children if you want to, and you will not face any repercussions from your government, by the way. In fact, we just saw this week thousands of Europeans from many different countries, including both Russia and Ukraine. Funny thing, they're uniting over genocide. But thousands of people from many different European countries have gone to Gaza to be part of this genocide. This is a very similar case to that. I just had to mention.
Extremely disturbing stuff. Dozens upon dozens, hundreds of dead children. So many terrible things, but it all fell down on Marc Dutroux's head. And in fact, the guy who a lot of people think Marc Dutroux got involved in this world through is a guy named Michel Nahul. Now, Michel Nahul was quoted in the press at one point in Belgium as having said, "They'll never arrest me. They will never question me. I am the real monster of Charleroi," the town that they were in. And he said that they would never arrest or question him because if he were to be brought in and he were to tell people what he knew and what he really knew happened, it would crumble the entirety of Belgium. The entire Belgian government.
Exactly. So what he's talking about here is that the amount of people implicated from high society in this case in Belgium was so staggering that if it ever came out in full, you would expect the Belgian government to collapse. But it never did. And the Belgian government is still intact and the royal family is still there.
Would collapse. But the parents of the children who had been abducted by Dutroux and victimized by this ring, they were not happy. They saw how this was playing out in the media, just like how the Epstein thing is playing out right now, and they decided that they needed to do something. And so in October of 1996, Belgium had the White March, which took place really in Brussels, Belgium. There were over 300,000 residents in Belgium.
300,000. That reminds me of 250,000 at the Red Line protest for Palestine here in the Netherlands, right? So similar numbers, just a bit of a coincidence.
Belgium, who showed up to protest in the streets to march and stand in solidarity with the victims of this pedophile ring. And they wanted to protest because they could all see that the government was covering up these crimes and that they were lying to them about what really happened. I mean, there are so many things we could talk about here with Dutroux, but one of the craziest things is that at one point police officers were actually sent to Marc Dutroux's house because a tip had come in that he was keeping two of the girls hostage. When the police officers actually showed up to his home, they heard girls screaming. They heard the sounds of screaming children screaming for help and banging on the walls. They were in his basement. The kids were in Dutroux's basement, but instead the police turned around and walked out the door and later on claimed they thought it was neighbors or a television program. So it's that fact along with lots of other facts that showed people in Belgium that their government was lying to them and that there was a lot more to this story than they were letting on to. This is what we need to see in America. So
this is where he falls a bit short. I'm not sure who this guy is. It might be this guy here, but yeah, just know that he's being a little more hopeful than I would be. I mean, obviously we must maintain revolutionary optimism at all points, but he is being a little more hopeful in the sense that he thinks, you know, if we go to March and do one or two protests, then it'll be fine. Not really the case. As we saw in Belgium, even though people went out to protest, eventually the whole ruling class was not brought down, and many of the people who were involved in that are still alive and well today, are still at the top of society and probably still running a lot of Belgian politics. I think you guys understand my thesis here by now around how this is all going to get normalized and just become another thing that we add to the list, you know, in terms of what we accept, the human pain and suffering that we accept as part of sustaining our society here in Europe and in the US. But I just want to show you a few more things here that kind of goes into how these elite Epstein class talk about us when they think no one is reading. So, sorry, I just like, by the way, if you don't know what this is, let me show you. This is Gmail. Let me give you a little close up here. This one up here on the top left, you see you have Gmail. If you want to search for it, it's basically all of the Epstein releases, all of the Epstein files classified into a sort of a Gmail interface, but of course they call it Gmail. I know Dropsite News is working with them. It's been a great source for me, and it's a very comprehensive way of looking through the Epstein files. So if you do want to look for them yourself, you can find them there. And this is also to say that everything I'm looking at are verified emails from Jeffrey Epstein or to Jeffrey Epstein. Now, let's continue here. So, in this email here from Jeffrey Epstein, like, this is not relevant, but just every time I open this every time I open an email in this Gmail, it's just always immediately so creepy, you know, like, I'm not going to read it out loud, but you can see. And he answers, by the way, about the age. yeah, pause to read if you want to see this part. But there was a part here, the last one, which is sent from someone's whose name is redacted, by the way, because of course they redact anyone who might be a co-conspirator. But yeah, what they say in this email, let me see if I can put it up in a way that you guys can see. Yeah. So what they say in this email is basically, also, I've been thinking a lot about the question that you asked Bill Gates. How do we get rid of poor people as a whole? And I have an answer/comment regarding that for you. When can I call you today to discuss this? Sent via BlackBerry from T-Mobile. Sorry, that's not funny, but it sometimes gets me how all of these emails are like, hey, how can we eradicate mass murder all of the poor people? And but yeah, cheers sent from my BlackBerry T-Mobile. So in case you were wondering, and he's talking about Bill Gates here, by the way. So apparently Jeffrey Epstein, Bill Gates, and whoever this guy is, redacted, had a lovely conversation around getting rid of poor people as a whole. And he put it in quotation marks for us as well. So, he's being very transparent. So it should not surprise you that people who see us in this way also are very comfortable ruling over us and are convinced that we're not going to revolt, even though they release these files and make us talk about it all the time. We have one person here in the chat. Let me see real quick. Can Trump be impeached by Congress about illegal policy? No, he cannot. I'll explain why. I mean, he could. I think you're referring to the fact that he just put a 10% tariff globally, even though the tariffs were just ruled to be illegal by the Supreme Court, and he's not following the ruling. Let me be very clear with you. If Congress had any genuine interest in impeaching Donald Trump, they could have done so already. He has broken hundreds of rules at this point that are all impeachable, and he never was impeached. So first of all, he won't get impeached because there is no genuine effort from anyone in Congress to impeach this man. And he also won't get arrested because he has shown as of yesterday that he does not follow the law, the legal system in the U.S., even when the summons or the ruling is coming from the Supreme Court. So to answer your question, Trump has placed himself above Congress and above the judicial system, including the Supreme Court. He is not going to. He's not going to be punished for any of this. He's officially a dictator now. Like we are way past the point where he could be impeached, and we've seen the weakness from the Democratic Party on those terms. Could he technically, legally be impeached? Yes, but they're not going to do it. Okay, that was just to answer a chatter here. And to the chatter, I'm gonna jump off of the Epstein files in a second, and then we can continue talking if you have any more questions. But let me just quickly finish the segment here on Epstein. I'm just gonna include this, and I'm just gonna say, give a clear warning. This is not official news. This is not verified. It is just a strange coincidence, or not a coincidence, sorry. It's just something that strange that is happening that people are starting to pick up on. And here we have, I think he's an Irish politician. I've seen him before. I should know his name because he's always talking he's always talking clearly and in a very strong way. So I wish I knew his name, but in any case, have a look here at what he is theorizing around Ghislaine Maxwell.
Since I've seen Ghislaine Maxwell, but she has developed an extraordinary likeness to Mike Myers, to Austin Powers in the short time actually, that she has been in an open, soft prison in the United States, at least for the latter part of the sentence that she has served so far. It begs the question, why would they put...
By the way, if you don't know who that is Trump's wife. I always say the wrong first name, so excuse me if it's the wrong name, but I think it's Melania Trump, right? And that is Ghislaine Maxwell, the right-hand woman of Donald Trump. Sorry, not Donald Trump, Jeffrey Epstein, who helped Jeffrey Epstein in his pedophile sex trafficking ring. And this is just to highlight the fact that a long time ago, clearly these people were close associates. And according to some leaks, the first time that these two individuals here, Donald Trump and his current wife, had sex was on Jeffrey Epstein's private jet. So it could be that Melania Trump, Trump's wife, is actually part of this whole trafficking operation and was kind of trafficked into Trump's hands thanks to Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein. Anyways.
Up a fake Ghislaine Maxwell, albeit with a long prison vantage point. The camera was seldom up close, but all it needed was some wag to blow the picture up, and I don't just mean the extra pounds that the pasta in the prison has, of course, put on Ghislaine Maxwell, a famously thin-faced woman. But no amount of pasta can change the length and the shape of your nose, and no amount of
So this man here is alleging
pasta
that the person on the left, which is a very recently released photograph of Ghislaine Maxwell in prison, is not really Ghislaine Maxwell. And as you can see in the side-to-side comparison, I understand why some people are starting with this theory. Mainly, for me, the biggest difference is that the nose here on the left is pointed up. You can clearly see the nostrils, and the nose here is pointed down and droops over the nostrils so that you cannot see them. There's a few other strange things which look a little bit different. If you were to have me guess, I would say that the person on the left is someone trying to cosplay as Ghislaine Maxwell, dress up as Ghislaine Maxwell, but I don't know if that's true. People are talking about it. I'll let this video finish. I'm not going to sell you on this idea. I just think it's something you should be aware of in case it happens to be true. I mean, so many conspiracies at this point come true that, I can't ignore things that are, even if there's only a 10% chance that it's true at this point,
can alter the distance between your eyes. And I've got to tell you, as someone who knows Ghislaine Maxwell, that wasn't Ghislaine Maxwell in that hearing. It was an entirely different woman.
Who knows? They might both be, Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell might both still be alive and well. They might be in Israel. They might be on some island. I don't know. I'm not going to tell you that's the truth, but people are theorizing about it, and I definitely wouldn't rule it out because we know now, as we've seen in this segment, how the elites have absolutely no respect for our intelligence and are very comfortable in pulling off stunts like this. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me, right? Last thing I'll say on Jeffrey Epstein, super last thing, Zorro Ranch. It's a ranch in New Mexico that was owned by Jeffrey Epstein. So everything you've heard about the Epstein Island, although that is all horrific and true, I just need you to understand that whatever was happening on the island is nothing compared to what was happening on the Zorro Ranch, the ranch in New Mexico. A wealthy politician bought it from Jeffrey Epstein after the fact and has refused to allow legal investigators onto the property to see if there's any remains of children on the ranch. It is suspected that Jeffrey Epstein on this ranch murdered and incubated and was doing a breeding program essentially with innocent children. And there could be hundreds and hundreds of victims there. When he was indicted the first time, when he was being investigated the first time, he happened to purchase to that ranch, I think it was over 500 liters of a certain acid, which is used to melt human bodies and dispose of evidence. So, I mean, this part here is not even conspiracy theory. I think anyone with a functioning brain can understand what was going on, right? Clearly, he had a lot of bodies to hide in this ranch. As soon as the police came knocking at the first sign of trouble, he ordered 500 gallons of acid and started melting bodies. So the island should not even be the main focal point. I hope the Americans will band together and go storm the ranch and see if they can find any evidence. As my usual co-host Ruben mentioned last time, getting one of these dogs that we use to identify and dig up the remains of dead people would be very useful on that ranch. let me see. There's one more question here in the chat. I might answer it quickly before we end the segment here. What purpose is the Epstein file? Trump not care that the American people busy with the ICE problem? So I think you probably missed the first 20 minutes that we went through. This will be uploaded after, so you can go through it. But as a good summary, I guess, to the whole thesis of the segment, let me be very clear. The purpose of the Epstein files being released and talked about 24/7 is to normalize it, so that you accept it as normal, so that the elites can start to abuse children in broad daylight without any consequences. They were already abusing children without any consequences. They just want to be able to do it in a normalized fashion, in a way that doesn't receive any pushback, similar to how we do the Gaza genocide in Palestine, you know, how we murder hundreds of thousands of children there, and there's no real pushback and no legal proceedings. So, yeah, that is the point of releasing the Epstein files. And by the way, I'll end the segment with this. If you don't want to take it from my mouth, if you don't believe what I'm saying, you should look at the influencers on the extreme right wing, mainly Nick Fuentes, which for many years now, I've been following Nick Fuentes since 2016, so I've seen him come up from the ashes. And for many years now, Nick Fuentes has been the home and the vocal leader of the far-right movement in the US. His supporters call themselves the Groypers. And Nick Fuentes, in the last 2 months, has been selling merchandise with Jeffrey Epstein on it. Basically, he's selling merchandise as a sort of like fandom around Jeffrey Epstein, and is starting to advocate for pedophilia, basically saying that Jeffrey Epstein is a cool guy. So that will be the next step in all of this, is that the extreme right wing is slowly but surely going to start advocating for pedophilia and making it normal. And by the way, when people on the left refuse to accept it, they're gonna call it cancel culture. I'm not joking. I wish I was joking. But soon enough, within our lifetimes, probably within the next 10 years, if you bring up that you think pedophilia is bad and that you don't want to, and you think someone should be arrested for it, or that they should be canceled for being a pedophile, you're going to be labeled a snowflake and part of the cancel culture. So that's that. If you're watching this live, stick around. We have many more topics to get through. We're still going to continue on a few Epstein topics, mainly on the Norwegian diplomats that have been outed as Israeli agents being manipulated under Jeffrey Epstein. And we're going to have a Norwegian journalist to join us on that topic. So if you're watching this live, stick around. If you're watching this recorded on YouTube as its own segment, then please subscribe. We don't take money from anyone. We're fully independent news source, or I don't know if I'm a news source, but we're political commentary at least. We don't take money from any advertisers, sponsors, or states. We don't even take donations from fans. So we're doing it purely for the love of the game. Anyways, yeah, drop a subscribe and see you next time. All right. If you're watching this live, stick around. That's just the YouTube outro that I do. In case you're confused, we go live for 4 hours, 3 hours, and in those 3 hours, we do different segments. And for those segments, I record them as standalone videos as well, so you can watch them so that people can watch them if they're not here live. Anyways, yeah, thanks for joining the live. LolEng3572. Not sure who you are, but or if you came from Instagram or just happened to view the thumbnail and clicked on it. But yeah, thanks for joining. And if you have any more questions, now is the time. I see a few people starting to join as well in the live, so feel free to say hello. And if you have any topics you want to discuss, drop it in the chat, and we'll get to it. Let me reach out to Alex and see if he is available still. Yeah, so Alex is this Norwegian journalist who reached out to me. And we had a phone call. Super interesting guy. So yeah, I wanna bring him on to discuss some topics. Let's see if he answers me. Yeah, we're gonna be talking about basically the diplomats who were involved in settling the peace agreement between the Palestinians and the Israelis in 1993. Those are the Oslo Accords. Okay, Alex still needs 5 minutes. All good. I'm gonna introduce the topic then. Sorry, let me just answer Alex here. Just send me. Sounds good. And I'll start to set up the call here so we can have Alex join. Anyone else in the chat want to say what's up? Let me know which area you represent, where you're watching this from, and how you came to find the broadcast. All right, I have my call ready for Alex. Let's see when he joins. Let me get rid of this one. Yeah, greetings from Indonesia. Hey, yo, man, or women, I don't know, but you're not the first. We have a lot of people joining from Indonesia. You guys have a lovely community over there of pro-Palestine activists, and the first video I ever posted, which blew up, actually, the people who were reposting that and sharing it like crazy were from Indonesia. So I don't know if you're one of those guys that came early. But yeah, it was fantastic. I got a lot of love from my Indonesian homies out there. So yeah, thank you for joining along. And I would love to learn more one day about why so many people in Indonesia resonate with what I'm saying here. I'm meant to be European focused on European politics, but something that I say apparently resonates with people in Indonesia. So yeah, let me know what that is. Let's see if Alex is ready yet. No, probably not. Let's see what else I can talk about in the meantime. I think let me show you this clip because I just I think it's quite interesting. We have here the previous Prime Minister of Israel coming out with a very scary statement for those of you who live in Turkey. So have a watch here.
I want to be very clear. Turkey and Qatar have gained influence in Syria, are seeking influence elsewhere and everywhere throughout the region. And from here, I warn, Turkey is the new Iran.
Alex is ready to join, but yeah, I just wanted to share this clip here because, yeah, if you thought you were safe in Turkey, well, you are not. Looks like the next people that are going to be suffering from Israeli colonialism are going to be the Turkish, because, yeah, as you know, Israel has a dream to become one of the biggest countries on earth, and they're not going to stop in Palestine, they're not going to stop in Lebanon, they're not going to stop in Syria. They're going to go all the way through Turkey, through Egypt, through Jordan, and potentially even Iran. So yeah. Anyways, Alex is about ready to join here, so let me admit him and set up my camera for him so he can also see me. 1 second. There we go. Let me turn everything off on the phone. Amazing. All right, so I'm about to admit Alex here. Let's see how he's doing. Hello, hello.
Hello, hey.
Hey, I have my video and audio coming from two different sections, so please
Yes.
don't worry about that. Okay, are you
Yes.
ready to appear on stream?
Yes, I'm ready.
Nice, good to see you. Let me
See you
just all right, I'm gonna put you on here, and I should stop this. Yeah. Sorry, I just need to frame you so that we see your face
Yes.
in a way here.
OBS.
Yeah. Can you?
I was supposed to have like my also set camera and stuff, but I was too late, so I'm just like, okay, I'm using just my Mac. No fancy live stream today.
Yeah. No worries, no worries. But could you maybe put your camera sideways, or is that a little tricky?
It's a little tricky now, but let me see.
If it's not
what I
possible,
can-
it's okay.
Yeah, it's a little bit difficult at this point.
Okay, no worries. Let me make you a bit bigger here. People can see you properly. And with myself, just give me one moment.
Yes.
Yeah, just struggling with OBS. Nothing new here. Maybe we can do it like this. All right. Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us, Alex. How are you? How are you feeling?
Good. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. Feeling good.
No worries.
It was a bit long night yesterday. Before we jump into Epstein file, I just wanted to mention this, since literally no coverage at all, even though it's a big news. Israel committed literally a massacre in Lebanon yesterday.
Oh my
More
God,
than 12 people killed, and so far 62 people are injured, and there's still a lot of people under rubble, so they're still digging in and trying to take people off. Literally the timing also, it's like Ramadan for a lot of people in Lebanon, they're fasting.
Yeah.
So the massacre happened literally the moment that the call for breaking your iftar started.
Yeah.
It's
No,
just-
they have no humanity in some ways. It's really crazy. It's really crazy.
Yeah.
I saw a clip as well of how they said they were bragging about how the best time to attack in
Yeah.
Iran or Palestinians is during Ramadan.
Ramadan, yeah.
Yeah. They really utilize any and all how do you say, advantages, right? Even when it's inhuman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
No regard for human life.
Yeah. Do you know how many were killed in Lebanon?
So far, 12 killed, 62 injured, and they're still looking on the rubbles. So the number might increase.
Okay. That's a disaster. Yeah, I was just before you joined, to fill the time a bit. I was playing the clip of the previous Israeli prime minister talking about how Turkey is now the new Iran. I don't know if you saw that. Yeah, but it looks like I mean, no one is safe, right? It's gonna keep expanding. It's gonna hit all neighboring countries until they become one big super state, I guess.
So true. I had this conversation at the beginning of the war with there's several people from different countries, and I'm like, look, okay guys, I don't want to go into this discussion again, but I agree 7 October was not something that we should have seen, and I feel sorry for all civilians everywhere, no matter what they come from.
Right.
But this is bigger than that. Let's talk about the goal and then how Israel is trying to use that incident that happened.
Yeah.
And then I said something. They want to stop they won't stop just like Lebanon, Palestine. There will be Iran. After that, they will create a new enemy, which is Turkey, Egypt. They also, a few weeks ago, they talked about one of the most real imminent threat on Israel is the Egyptian army, and they think that it's getting too strong and too difficult to spy on. So they won't stop.
No. Anyone who basically is able to stand on their own 2 feet seems to be a potential threat. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And the next thing would be, I think, if we really don't do something, if we don't stand up and then say enough is enough, I think in the next 20 years you would see the official language in Lebanon and all the way up to Saudi Arabia is Hebrew, not Arabic anymore.
Yeah. I wish you were exaggerating, but I know that you're not. Yeah.
I lived long, so things I never imagined it would be true. Now it is happening. So
yeah, exactly. Yes. We are almost always too optimistic in our assessments, it seems, which is crazy because I wouldn't say we're being naive, right? We're always talking very, very straight to the point. But yeah.
Especially after the Epstein files, because now in politics and when we speak about what's going on in the world, we have to refer to before Epstein and after Epstein documents. So after the Epstein documents, I think we should not really take things for granted, should not be naive anymore, and we really have to expect everything. There's even the conspiracy, like theories of conspiracy, whatever we used to like say, like, oh no, this is a conspiracy theory. We have to take into consideration everything, really think twice about everything we hear and we listen.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, so many people that we ridiculed, or at least I ridiculed a bit, you know, around the Pizzagate and a lot of people that were being ridiculed by the left. It turns out that they were not too far from the truth. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. Is the sound okay on your end? Everything is good?
Perfect. Yeah,
Okay.
everything is perfect.
All right. I'm gonna take you off the screen just for like 1 minute to introduce the topic, and then I'll introduce you back, and we'll start the more formal part.
Yes.
Do you have a certain way you'd like to be introduced for the video? Like,
I'm an independent journalist, Alex Jørgensen, from Norway with Lebanese origins.
Yes,
or you can say Lebanese Norwegian. That also all works.
Okay, perfect. Then I've taken you off. I can still hear you, but I'll take you off for a second, and I'll start recording here and introduce the topic. Yeah. Terje Rød-Larsen is a top Norwegian diplomat infamous for negotiating the Oslo Accords between Israel and Palestine under the Norwegian Labour government in 1993. Now, thanks to the Epstein files released by the DOJ, he has been outed as a close associate to Jeffrey Epstein. Joining me now, we have Alex Jørgensen, a Norwegian Lebanese independent journalist, to discuss this topic. And let's start by just saying, are you surprised at all by this revelation? Is this something that has hit the Norwegian media with by shock, let's say?
I can tell you, like, I wrote a little introduction to this, and I called it like, this is a diplomatic earthquake. Literally, it is an earthquake. And am I surprised? Of course, I'm surprised, because I had this sort of like a little bit of nationalism, like loving Norway, thinking of Norway is like compared to other European countries, because of course there's still a lot of great things in this country, but it's really shocking, because also this comes from the left. The leftist social parties, people who were considered as idols for a lot of people. But Terje Rød-Larsen, I'm not really surprised, because I also have memories from Terje Rød-Larsen in Lebanon, which is not really happy. A lot of southern people in Lebanon who lived occupation and Israeli war and stuff don't like him, because he was always coming and then behaving in Lebanon in a very arrogant way, acting as if like he's the Jesus of Lebanon. We have to just like listen to his morals and ideas.
Right.
And so I am not super like I wouldn't say really surprised. It's just shocking me that it's coming from Norway. It's after what we've seen, I think from now on I won't be surprised. It's good that I got the big shock and I'm over it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you say something instrumental there, which is even though that this guy used to be seen as a big supporter, I guess, of Palestine, or at least of peace, right? At least impartial, he always had, and they always tend to have, coming from Europe, this sort of colonial spirit, in the way that they try to infantilize the people that they're supposed to be dealing with, right? And they say that, you know, we're the ones who know best, so you're going to accept this peace deal without complaining, because there's no other option, right? We're not going to genuinely listen to your demands, so to speak. And just real quick before you jump in again, for the people wondering, what is the association with Jeffrey Epstein? Well, in the DOJ files, he describes him as my best friend and a thoroughly good human being. So this is Terje. By the way, how do you say his name?
Terje.
So this is
Terje Rød-Larsen.
Yeah. So this is Terje saying about Jeffrey Epstein that he is a thoroughly good human being and his best friend. And he also described him as a central node in Epstein's network in Norway. So alluding there that the network goes beyond this one person and is actually quite broad. So So you're not really surprised, but can you tell me a little bit more about this earthquake that's going on then in
I just
politics?
want to comment one thing when you said like about that he was perceived always as a person who supports peace, and that's the twist.
Yeah.
Because like I have the two perspective. I have the Norwegian perspective and the Lebanese perspective.
Right.
He's perceived as a person who always supported peace only in Europe. If you go to Lebanon, he's been always part of the political division, and this is something I will come into later. There's a lot of revelation, which is really, really something shocking to hear. How he was part of like a Lebanese when we had at some point a paralysis in the political system, division, almost civil war. So in Lebanon, no, he was never perceived as a person who supported peace. He was always perceived as someone who's just like here to practice colonial practices in a new phase.
Yeah. So
yes,
yeah, and I think we'll get into that after the files. But just this idea that peace is often used as a mechanism to just continue the colonialist agenda, right?
Yes.
Yeah. But before we
speaking
jump
about the
into
earthquake,
yeah,
yes,
exactly.
Yes,
So
speaking of the earthquake, so like this is literally, like I said, this is an earthquake rattling Oslo at this point, because Epstein files, the transition from this, like you have to understand that this is not just about like just involvement in Epstein or being friend with Epstein. There is something that is include leaking secret sensitive documents to stealing literally Oslo Accord archive from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, sending it to Epstein, or we don't know who took it yet.
Yeah.
So like latest update about this scandal, I could tell you first. So the leaks, first of all, the investigation has taken a little bit dark turn towards like Lebanon. So there's a whistleblower within the probe claims during the critical era of the UN Resolution 1559. So that's something also Terje Rød-Larsen was responsible for. It's a UN resolution came against Lebanon, forcing all resistance, other groups to disarm. So basically right now what we see, it was like literally he was taking advices, orders, whatever you want to call it, on a daily basis from Epstein, and collaborating with Lebanese politicians to bring eventually a resolution that doesn't fit Lebanon's interest but fits Israel's interest. Also, leaks suggested that UN briefs, political maps, private security readouts were funneled to Epstein, things he got because of his job in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So far, the situation, I mean, at this point, there is official charges against him. Terje Rød-Larsen has been formally charged as accessory to gross corruption. His wife also, Monayul, who's like was ambassador in Jordan, she's also charged with the gross corruption. Mm-hmm. They already raided his house, something called like Økokrim in Norway, forced his wife to resign. There is kind of like an intelligence probe, and like so far what they have found. Of course, let me tell you something, that there's not a lot of things still coming out to the news, because especially the topic of he was spying on Lebanon, he was spying on Syria, he was spying on certain political groups in Lebanon, providing these informations to Epstein. They are still not commenting on that. And my question is, why? Why specifically? They're focusing a lot on the money he got on, for example, the visa scandal, because he used his center, IPI center, to grant visa for Eastern European women that Epstein liked, and then bringing them to the US so they can be transferred to Epstein Island. But the most important topics is the documents he leaked, the archive he stole, the spying he did on Lebanon and Syria. It looks like it's just leaks, but I haven't seen like police speaking about it or politician talking about it, as if like we don't count in Lebanon.
Right, exactly. So it's what you're saying there is very interesting, right? So you have, on one hand, obviously it's a big scandal that this man was involved potentially in a sex trafficking ring, but from a larger perspective, the crimes go way beyond that, because it proves that the politicians in Norway are in one way or another subservient, or at least connected to this ring of Epstein influence, right? and this has a big significance on a global stage, because although Norway is not the largest country, you do have the sovereign wealth fund based on oil extraction, and you also have a lot of political power on the global stage. So it's not a small country in terms of political power, and when you see the international order and how it functions, Norway is a very big part of that. There's a reason why, it's not a coincidence that Norway was in the middle of these Oslo Accords between the Palestinians and the Israelis. And of course, what you're talking about now is also Lebanon and their agreements with Israel. So what do you think the larger, or let's say, what is for you the biggest, most concerning part of all of this, or what is at least being ignored mostly by the media?
The intelligence brokering. That Rød-Larsen was passing confidential UN briefings, privileged conversation regarding Lebanese and Syrian border security directed to Epstein. Also, political collaboration, because he was entwined with political leaders which are corrupted during a really a time in 2008, 2004 till 2008, when we had a prime minister who was assassinated, and that almost caused a civil war. And it looked that he was in touch with those politicians, giving them orders to certain things that almost caused a civil war in Lebanon.
So it's really the intelligence
the intelligence part of it aspect, yes.
And when we connect this, because another interesting point for me was the fact that he's also, he switched, because in the first half of his career he was known as a labor politician, but then in the later half of his career he really switched to being a pro-MAGA, very far-right advocate, trying to connect the European far-right parties together with also the American MAGA movement. Do you see this being connected? I mean, is what we're talking about a sort of power grab going on with top diplomats in Norway who are also implicated or closely tied to other right-wing diplomats in mainland Europe?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think it's a really good incubator for their ideas and their ideologies, because to be honest, even when he was on the Labor, when he was still more on the Labor Party, like I said, there is a difference between how people saw him always in Norway and then how we, people in Lebanon, we perceived him, because he always took a part in the conflict in Lebanon. He never came to Lebanon as this mediator who's really neutral and cares about peace. He used that role of Norway, like a neutral country, and then became a part of a huge political problem in Lebanon, and literally, in a way or another, defending occupation against Lebanese interests and national security, but which aligned with a lot of right wing in Europe, who literally don't give a damn about us.
Yeah, so I think it's very clear that Norway plays a big role in this colonial development in trying to, as you said, stop any resistance in Lebanon, right? Or at least, or even stop any democratic resistance in Lebanon. But do you think that this goes further beyond that this is also an influence operation on Europe itself, coming from the American side or even the Israeli side?
Of course, and we can understand that from the way how recently the MAGA people has been going against the left, and then in a way trying to praise right-wing people like Elon Musk, for example, vice president, literally interfering directly into our politics, and then criticizing the left, criticizing immigration movements, criticizing laws that, about diversity and inclusion in Europe, and then going more into supporting the right wing and extreme right wing. So yes, it's definitely about, after all, it's not the only country that use lobbying is Israel. Also, USA has lobbying. USA uses two parts. They try to push through the power that they dominate the world, but not everything they can get things done this way. So they need the lobby apparatus, and that's Terje Rød-Larsen is one of those people that empowered USA into that term.
Right. So he's potentially part of this larger scheme to make sure that a very certain aspect of the ruling class in the United States, but also the European ruling class, maintain the current world order, which, to your point, is not the world order that people, let's say, like my parents' generation, thought it was, like in terms of being the social democratic Scandinavian model.
Exactly. And I will tell you specifically why, because in the recent years, social media has brought a lot of people to their senses, I would say. So many people became like my generation. I'm 38. Please don't mention that again. But I come from a time where I was really questioning everything, like why people, like literally that culture that people hate Arabs, European hate Muslims, European hate non-white people, and that was something like we normalized, we're just like, it's okay, like everyone hates Arabs, so you just have to hide that you're Arab, don't tell people that you're from this country or that country. But the new generation started to wake up, so that represents risk on American domination over the world and American, what they call national interest. This is why they needed to take a different stance, support the right wing, because now mostly right wing align with their idea of controlling the world and dominating us.
Yeah, so that's very interesting. So you're saying like this old image is kind of being outed, and it's hard to keep up at this point, right? Especially with the Epstein files being released. I quickly want to say he was not only very close to him, but he also received $10 million. $10
million,
as a payout. So $5 million for each one of his children. Which kind of shows the gravity of this. So when you have 10 million going from one of the biggest international sex traffickers in history to the supposed diplomat negotiating peace in the Middle East on behalf of Norwegians under the Labour government, it becomes very hard to continue selling to the new generation that all we need is either neoliberalism or social democracy, right? So so what do you think the response will be? I mean, and I want to ask this as a twofold question. What will the response be from the people that voted for that Labour government back in 1993? So the older generations, and what do you think will differ from the younger generations in Norway?
First, the older generation, they owe everyone in Lebanon an apology. For literally, because a lot of Lebanese people, they trusted Norway as a neutral country that like especially like Terje Rød-Larsen also, like okay, think of him as coming from the UN, wants peace after the Oslo Accord. Maybe the peace is something achievable in Lebanon, and I'm not here like taking sides, resistance or not. I mean like personally, like politically, I had a lot of problems with Hezbollah, but I'm speaking as a journalist here. Like, let's say they owe every single one in Lebanon an apology, because they always came with this like mentality that you're like these Arabs, uncivilized people who just think of war and killing and know nothing. And then we're like here, the white people who's gonna save you from this, like, like I don't want to curse, but the deep.
And super quick save you, and the person that we're sending to save you is this very esteemed, Labour guy, but in reality, he's doing God knows what with children and Jeffrey Epstein.
So, number one, they owe an apology. Number two, Lebanon is still stuck into really like very sectarian system. People hate each other, political parties, they don't want to sit and talk, and there's literally no one at this point in Lebanon, from Hezbollah to Lebanese forces to like it, literally everyone, no one cares about Lebanon. Everyone have their own political agenda, but the European interference and American interference has contributed into fueling the situation and making it worse and worse. So literally, we're walking slowly into a new civil war. To avoid that, as an apology, as a token of apology, because saying sorry is not enough, they need to come clean and say, okay, we have started investigation with Terje Rød-Larsen. We have started a probe into everything happened. And this is basically what we know so far. Because there's a lot of things. Who assassinated the prime minister of Lebanon? Terje Rød-Larsen, of course, he knows something. Right. Who assassinated all those political, in 2 years, we literally had almost every month, minister deputy in the parliament been assassinated. What really happened? What does he know? Because he had obviously connection to big high people, so they know something. So they can make it easy, because we're going into a civil war because of that. This is a legacy of that era. So they owe us to come today and they tell us like, okay, this is and this is and this is, we know, and this is what happened, because I'm sure they know something. And the new generation at this point, they need to understand that like this traditional left that always introduced itself or portrayed itself as like, you know, the la vie en rose, like they're the great angels of Europe. They're not. They need to see the truth and then look for a real reliable alternative, or at least to start, like, we live in a democratic society, start a real, like, a question, what are we going to do? Like, you have to be open, you have to be transparent. If you support Labour Party, request that the Labour Party are more honest and then more willing to listen to their voters and to their people, not just like left, we support immigrants when the election comes, and then after the election we're like, that's it, it's over, we're back to the right wing coated with the left wing policies.
Or in this case, you know, we support peace between the Palestinians and the Israelis, but in reality we're just operatives for the Israelis that most likely have a lot of blackmail material being held against us. Even if we wanted to change course, we could not, because we're held captive by our own sins, so to speak, right? Caught on camera. But interestingly, on the new generation, which is what I represent, I'm a bit less than... okay, I won't bring it up again, as you requested.
No, it's okay, 38.
Yeah.
My birthday is coming soon, so I remember it every day now.
And I will say, someone in the chat asked if you were 58. I said, no, that's 38, not 58. But in any case, for the younger generation, also in Denmark, you know, I'm not sure if you know this, but we have big streamers in the US, for example, Nick Fuentes, and a lot of people around him, where the main part of their audience are actually not American. They're young people in Europe who are being funneled one after the other into the right wing. And interestingly enough, some of these people use the Gaza genocide to kind of as a gateway into anti-Semitism and neo-Nazi propaganda. So is that something you see as well happening in Norway? Are we losing the new generation now that they are disillusioned with the center left and the center right? Are they going to the extreme right, or are they going? Is there a chance that they will go somewhere better?
Look, I think before the election, we had a little bit of a worrying, like Belga wave in Norway, that a lot of young generation were going more into the real extreme right wing, which is FRP. But like, you know, sometimes something bad happens. There's like an Arabic saying, something bad happened, but it eventually brings something good at the end, good consequences. All the drama and I don't know what to call it, by like SHIT that Trump did. Trump did in the last few months. It really started to, especially the Epstein file, it really brought people back to their senses. So I think at this point, a lot of people in the new generation, they are a bit lost. They're in the middle. They don't know where to go. They don't trust the right wing anymore, which is basically right wing has been trying to whitewash USA. They don't trust the left anymore also, because the left has been literally, for the last 4 years, the most hypocrite, block in at least in Norway, as I see it. But unfortunately, like those people, they need someone to guide them. So you need an alternative so fast before they're like, again, brainwashed and then taken into probably back to the extreme right wing or whatever. So
absolutely, and that's a little bit of what we're trying to do here. I mean, I understand people's frustration with the center left and the center right, and now it's official, right? The reason that the center left, or just the normal left, for so many generations in Europe has felt so spineless and able to switch on their policy so quickly, is because they're being run by this Epstein class of people that have no morals, right? They have no genuine intent to make things better, and we do need some sort of alternative. Do you, if it's okay if you don't want to endorse anyone, but do you have a solution for Norwegians, for example, watching this, who might be wondering what that alternative is?
Of course, in Norway, we have a lot of alternative in the left. So I don't want to, like I said, I'm a journalist. I try not to endorse any
Of
political
course, yeah,
parties,
which
but
is perfectly fair.
we have like, I think everyone knows now, almost a lot of people in the left, they know Labour Party, they are just left to, they just, it's like someone who has a house in Oslo,
Yeah.
or like his in the registry, folk registry, his house in Oslo, but he actually lives in the north. So it's like they registered their address in the left, but they're in the right wing. So that's
Right.
how, like, to put it metaphorically. But there are
Yeah.
other, like, we have other SV, other parties that they can look at. And look, something beautiful about Norway, we really have this is something I really appreciate. We have a democratic process, a really democratic society, a loving democratic, despite all the, shady shit that happened. So people are able to change, and I'm very optimistic in that terms. We do have good political parties. I see many new generation joining those parties. I hope that this wave will continue. I just ask people, like Labour Party, question them a lot. Other like typical parties, question them before you go into joining the party.
Yeah, I
And
think
there are good alternatives.
well, that's good to hear. I think for young people in general, I mean, when I talk to people my age or younger, no one has any faith in the system, right? One thing that we've all can agree on is that the system is failing. But I just really hope that we don't get encapsulated by this this far right movement. Do you think?
Yeah.
How was the whole Greenland saga in Norway? Is that something that also pushed people away from MAGA? Was there a lot of like these young nationalists that
really.
woke up in that moment?
Yeah, that was really magic. Like again, this is something I love about history, that it teaches us lessons. Some arrogant people like Trump, they never read because they're just so full of themselves. But when it doesn't matter how strong and powerful you are, sometimes you might make mistakes that would destroy you ultimately without really noticing. And so the good thing about MAGA is that they only see in the world USA. They really don't give a heck about the rest of the world. And this is why, because when they come, like when they really requested Greenland, they don't give a damn heck about the national interest of Norway or Denmark or how people think or how people see it. Like Norwegian might love USA, the culture, the music, everything. But when it comes to like the Scandinavian brothers, Danish, Swedish, no. They're not like willing to compromise. And this is something Americans, they don't understand. They're full of themselves that they don't care about these little small things. That has started a wave in Norway. A lot of people, I've seen people in FRP moving out, like they were just like saying, I want to change my party, went more to Rødt, SV, other political parties in the left, because they just felt like, no, right wing, they still defend USA. I mean, they try to come like, we are with USA allies, but we're not with Greenland. It's like you're eating salmon fish with hummus. They don't fit together. You can't dip like fiskekake with hummus.
Right.
So like you're in the right wing, but against Trump. That made, in an unintentional way, a lot of people walk away from the MAGA and in praising USA culture.
Rightfully so. I mean, we've seen so many of these alt-right nationalist parties that appear to be psyops, just funded from MAGA or Steve Bannon or a lot of the people that even funded Donald Trump, right? And now we see with the Epstein class how they are all connected.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think. Do you have anything else to say on Norway? Otherwise, I would leave it there.
I think that's all.
Okay.
For now, I will have to wait the investigation and see where it's gonna go.
For sure. If you still have time, I would like to still talk to you about
sure.
Palestine and so on. So obviously, we saw this ceasefire come into place a few months ago. And since then, we've seen over 600 Palestinians still been killed. And I think that's a consistent undercount. The number since 2023 is 75,000. Again, I think that's a severe undercount. I think it could be as high as 200,000 or 300,000, if not more. And I'm just wondering how is this ceasefire being processed
I think
after all of these months? Yeah.
Yeah, this is like, it's a little bit like it. I got really sad when the ceasefire happened and a lot of people went to celebrate like now it's a ceasefire, because this is not a ceasefire. I can tell you that, and Americans, they understood that, like, okay, they're losing the rhetoric. Obviously, protests everywhere in Europe, in the US, things are just getting out of hands. They needed to do something. And as the big brother or the big sister of Israel, they kind of forced Israel into accepting the ceasefire while allowing them under the table, like, you can go assassinate, kill here and there and whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the main idea is they just needed to cool down the like anger on social media, in the streets and everywhere. And that's basically what happened, unfortunately. And many of my friends who used to protest post, they completely stopped. Now, if I post something about like someone got killed or like a massacre in Lebanon or Palestine, people ask me, really? But I don't see that on Anarcho. Or like BBC or whatever. I mean, what do you expect? Those big news, they're not gonna tell you. So that worked. They needed to kind of like take off that anger at that like at that moment, so they can, like, allow Israel continue what they want to do, but a little bit away of the media and the attention.
Yeah, it's really crazy what you say there. I mean, I felt the same here in Amsterdam. We right before the ceasefire, we had 300,000 people marching on a red line protest, and after, when we went, it was only like, I think at most a few thousand, right? So it's really been diminished by a lot, and it took the European media two full years of genocide before they started talking about this in a more or less correct tone, right? Addressing the gravity of the situation. So, of course, as soon as that, the insanity of the genocide is scaled back even a tiny bit, of course, the media is not going to come out and report on it until we reach those extreme levels again. We're going to have to see another 200,000 die before the European media will start to talk about it properly again. And I think you mentioned something interesting, that the US kind of gave this to Israel. I remember at the time there were some commentators saying, Israel is being almost suicidal in the way that they are trying to push the line way beyond anything that would even be necessary from a short-term strategy perspective. And the US almost had to step in to save them, to save their image, and to whitewash and to do a whitewashing campaign for them, right? To reintegrate them into European diaspora. Yeah, and I think on top of that, they also negotiated with Israel this yellow line deal, right? Where half of Gaza is being given officially now to Israel, if I'm not mistaken. And the other half, which is on the other side of this imaginary yellow line, is being given to the Americans under Trump's Board of Peace. So how is that situation looking? And has anyone, because everywhere I look, even the left-wing media, they talk about the Board of Peace, but we're not talking about the fact that Israel has now officially annexed half of remaining Gaza, right?
This is exactly what they did with the Epstein files. They released millions of documents. So most literally, I can tell you 80% of my friends, they're talking about cannibalism. They're talking about this weird sexual behaviors they were like, or rituals they were doing. But no one is speaking about the intelligence scope of it, about like Ehud Barak, about how Israelis, they tabbed, for example, Epstein's apartment in New York. No, these important things no one is talking about. Same thing about this, like we're talking about the board piece that he stole, this golden, whatever you call it, a hammer. Yesterday, I've seen more than 30, 40 reels about it. But like, are we talking about the real deal here? Like, officially, half of Gaza is like swallowed by Israel. It's like they took it and no one is gonna even talk about it under the the disarmament, and then until they disarm and everything, and like, it's no one have really mentioned the real deal, which is annexing Gaza, which will be eventually slowly, because also there is another thing, the Rafah passage thing, the Rafah crossing border. They're gonna open it. They're technically allowing more people to go out than people to go in.
Right.
In collaboration with Egypt. Of course, Egypt, like publicly, they would come say no. But also we know Egypt, the moment even before the war was over, They signed a $35 billion deal with Israel in Gaza. At the same time, they were condemning Israel and the genocide and everything. So Egypt is not a country to trust. So this is, in a way or another, of course, people who are living in Gaza like have no food, no future, nothing. What do you expect? Yes, people will leave. Like, this is not something you could blame them for.
Yeah, and I think just to put a number on it, I think 120,000 have left Gaza since the war began, right?
Exactly. So, and the number is gonna increase because they always bring something new. Like now, you know, we're talking about aliens. We're talking every few weeks we have something new to talk about to divert us from what's really going on, and then we're gonna wake up in a one day and we'll see, voila, there is probably 200,000 people left in Gaza. They have no other option either to accept to live like those people who are living inside the territory in Israel, like Arab Israelis, or like they will slowly seek asylum abroad and then just like leave, and Gaza will be settled. They're trying to do the same in Lebanon, for example. This is literally no one is talking about. They still occupy 5 posts in Lebanon. It's all about, like, you know, same thing. They say like, we want to disarm Hezbollah, but this is not about, if it was about disarmament of Hezbollah, trust me, as a Lebanese person, I don't want any political party or a militia to hold. I want a monopoly of weapon. I don't want, but I have a lot of fundamental problems with Hezbollah. Politically, we don't align at all. But this is not about this. This is bigger. What they say in the media is something, and when they go negotiate in the closed rooms, they're literally asking for half of Lebanon to be turned into an economic zone where Israel and USA and Lebanon have control over, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, it's a new Riviera Gaza, but in Lebanon. But right now, Americans' priority is Gaza, Iran. And they're literally leaving Lebanon like that, no priority for Lebanon. They're coming to Lebanon after they're done with Gaza, which we will see the same thing. People don't talk about this. They only go to board peace. The gavel, whatever you called it, gavel. So it's little small things.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, we made a video, I think 2 months ago, talking about the 5 stages of Israeli expansion, right? So it is, you know, when you look at how they talk internally, and it also came out again in the Epstein files. So this is something we know for a while, but it was, again, something I saw in the files. They talk about Israel and the expansion project always as a numbers game, right? It's always about how can we get the numbers of Arab populations down as low as possible, and at the same time move in Israeli citizens, you know, first through military, then it becomes a military outpost, then it becomes illegal settlements, then it becomes legal settlements, and eventually becomes full annexation. And the mechanism, all of their strategies being used is always with the goal and intent of driving this numbers game so that you can diminish the Arab population and replace them, essentially.
Like one thing, there have been in the last few weeks in Lebanon, something also I was surprised media did not talk a lot about. They've been spraying 50, I heard it was like 50 times or something, 150 times more than what is like usually is okay. Toxins that is literally killing the habitat, olive tree, anything that is green, to just make it difficult. People of the south, they don't have the city trait. Like, you know, I know people in the south, family and relatives, and if they want to make a salad, it's usually from their own garden. The olives is from the garden. The wheat is from their own garden. They're literally killing this, and that's something cultural tied to people in the south. When you take that from them, you're leaving them with no option to live in that land. I mean, a few weeks ago, it was I think 2 weeks ago, tens of settlers came from Israel to Lebanon to occupy territory under the protection of the IDF or IOF, let's call it, and they planted trees in Lebanese territory, and then they took pictures, and they're saying that this is the first project into settling south of Lebanon, and no condemnation, nothing, no one speak about, like, as if this is normal, like to just like come in, take someone's plant, even though they haven't started settlements, but this is a beginning. This is how it started in West Bank a few years ago, and look where we are today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and not only to highlight that, but just to say really quickly, I mean, in Gaza right now, they're still being bombed. There's a fake ceasefire, but they're not allowed to respond in any way.
Yeah,
there's
same in Lebanon.
Yeah, exactly. Same deal with Hezbollah in Lebanon. People are dying of hypothermia because they still don't have access to basic things, and there's still widespread starvation. And the idea that this is something that's going to stay in Gaza is laughable, because it's currently already happening in Lebanon, as you're saying. It's happening in the Druze area in Syria, in the southwest.
Syria.
And all of Syria is kind of becoming a puppet state, right, of Israel. And I was talking to another person just 2 days ago from Syria, who was explaining to me that because of the takeover of Syria, a lot of extremists from the Islamic State and so on, who are kind of allied with the new Syrian government, are pushing the boundaries of the militias of the pro-Irani militias in Iraq. And slowly but surely, they're moving the front line closer and closer to Iran, moving through Iraq, so that if they need to invade Iran, they can have a true two-front war using these local militias as sort of proxies, right? So the expansion is in full swing. Syria was a big part of that. Lebanon is being affected. And where do you see all of this ending? I mean, what do you think we will be looking at the end of this year?
Yeah, this is another worrying topic you were talking about, because now in Lebanon, for example, when they want to threaten Lebanese people, they're saying like, oh yeah, Al-Julani forces gonna move from Syria into Lebanon, into Iraq also. They're literally like, there's talks that they have thousands of former ISIS, former Jabhat al-Nusra, former whatever, like Islamist radical groups in Syria. They're now like part of the Syrian regime. And they're the same people who killed the Druze, who now like Israel is claiming that they want to protect them, who Trump thinks they're a terrific, cute guys working with a perfect Ahmed al-Shara president guy. So they're using them to threaten Lebanon, that we're going to send those guys into Lebanese villages to disarm Hezbollah, Iraq also, to disarm the militias, that proxies, Iranian proxies they call it. I mean, like, trust me, I could tell you 50% of Lebanese people, like, they don't care, like, at least like from the Shia and South and Bekaa, they don't care about Hezbollah. This is not about Hezbollah for them. But like, it's like threatening them with sending literally radical terrorist groups who they have a one ideology: hate the Christian, hate Shia, hate anything that is Western, and anything that is not this on the same like radical Islam like them. I mean, what you're gonna, instead of pushing people into more believing in a monopoly of weapons and arms, and then believing in a one-state solution, and then like in Lebanon, I'm saying no, 2 states in 1 state, and people respecting the government and a government that protects its people, you're pushing them away from that concept, and then you're again pushing them to believe that the only people who saved us from ISIS in 2016 were Hezbollah, and now they're the only people to save us again.
Yeah,
so you're not helping the situation here.
Just like
what I see, to finish, sorry, it took me a little time. What I see at the end of the year, that's worrying me a little bit, because I think USA will eventually use Syrian militias and army to finish the job in Lebanon and in Iraq, the job that Israel can't do and USA can't do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's coming up. And just 2 days ago, I saw Donald Trump in his speech. Actually, not 2 days ago. Sorry, last night I saw it live.
Yeah.
He said there was a Syrian reporter that asked, what about Syria? He said, okay, I'm not going to talk about it too long, because right now I'm talking about how I'm overruling the decision made by the Supreme Court. But I will briefly say that Syria is doing great, and thanks to the guy that I put in there. They again the only thing that keeps me sane in this year is that at least the Americans say it out loud. We no longer have to speculate and look crazy when we say these things.
Yeah.
So he's admitting that this is his guy, right?
something really interesting I wanted to say, because the special envoy to Lebanon and Syria, Tom Barrak, who's mentioned in the Epstein files, who literally in the Epstein files received the email. Epstein, there's like a email sent by Barrak to Epstein telling him, thanks for the child. We don't know what is that. It's just thanks for the child. And when you're talking about a pedophile, so what the fuck is thanks for a child? That guy, he has been like, he's the Trump special envoy to Lebanon and Syria. If you really like, I'm going to send you later his name. Just go listen. Like in one day he came to Lebanon. He told journalists in Lebanon, you're being animalistic. And if you continue doing that, I'm going to stop this press conference. He's the same guy that he literally spoke a few weeks ago saying that there is no Lebanon and Syria and Middle East. There is countries we created. And then now it's time to reshuffle. And he literally spoke about, I don't think Lebanon should be a state. It should be part of Syria ultimately. So I mean, they're speaking about Lebanon and Syria as if it's like you're playing city skyline and you just like, you know, merge two cities together, or like it's a game. It's like, what about people? What about Lebanese people? What they want? I mean, what's happening in Iraq? Iraqi people voted for a prime minister. Now USA threatening, we'll cut you off monetary system and bank system if you keep that as a prime minister. So
and it's so funny you mentioned like the skyline, city skyline, SimCity simulation thing, because you know, Donald Trump and Jared Kushner and the Board of Peace are releasing all these AI images of Gaza, which doesn't even look like the Gaza coast, with all of these luscious. I'm gonna put it on the screen quickly for the people at home. But yeah, just showing all of these like skylines of just the most amazing AI generated images, and it just makes you wonder, like, are they themselves this stupid that they think that this is how nation building works, or is it that they just take us for fools and they think that they can, you know, compare Gaza and the real images coming out of there, you know, completely pummeled and destroyed, versus this AI image, and it's just two different worlds. It just makes you wonder what is their end plan there. Is it this
their end
economic
plan
zone,
is, you know, their end plan is like, it reminds me of a typical Lebanese corruption scam usually. So when Lebanon receives like $500 million from Europe in like for reconstruction and stuff like that, so you have those like bunch of typical political corrupted crocodiles, I call them. They have companies that works under them. They come and they make this beautiful video made how this area is gonna turn into, like, you know, with the money that coming is from Europe, was gonna build like a beautiful bridge, school, universities, to sell it out to European. And then 10 years later you come and then you see they literally, the only thing is they just put the first stone when they made they made this big party and then event. And then there's a plaque that says like a donation from the EU Commission, blah, 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 blah. And then nothing else. We have more than 6,000 projects like that. So this is basically, it's a scam. They're gonna, of course, the plan is to annex Gaza. You're not gonna rebuild a country. I mean, Gaza is a part of a country, while you're allowing Israel to have the yellow line and then literally push people outside of Gaza, and then when they go out, they can't go in. So it doesn't add up.
No, definitely not. I just wonder, because of this AI aspect, if there is a little bit of tech oligarchy going on, where there is a genuine interest to test out new technologies in terms of population control and so on. One of the interesting clips I saw was from Yanis Varoufakis, who said that he was recently talking to someone in Palantir who explained to him that they got a lot of data from the Gaza genocide, because every time you drop a bomb, people move in all sorts of directions. And that data was used by Palantir to train AI systems, which are used for emergency response systems in Ireland, in the UK, for example, right? So is there a slight difference there compared to the normal rebuilding scam that actually they are trying to, on top of their usual shenanigans, they're also trying to test out new technologies for these tech
Of course.
oligarchs?
I mean, if you think of the whole Gaza war, after the Gaza war, there are certain companies, tech companies, they started to sell their for example, Israel is using a system called GoDaddy. It's literally an app on like soldiers' phone and tablets. It can tell them what target to kill. It's a part of a big implementation, like in a system.
Yeah.
Usually they use wars to test new technologies and new wars. I have a friend once, she said something really, to quote her, it's really beautiful. She said most of what we enjoy today in the AI technology has been tested on real lives in Gaza, in Sudan. So yes, I believe, like I said, before Epstein and after Epstein. After Epstein, I believe everything could be possible, and it's not coming from like conspiracy. We know that Israel tested out a lot of technology and a lot of weapons, and right after the war, go look at the stocks and at how much they've been selling increased. One example, look into Germany, what they're buying from Israel, and when you see what Germany is buying from Israel, the recent shopping list they had from Israel. Look at those technologies and weapons where they have been tested and used mostly in the last 3 years. You will understand.
Yeah. All right, I think we should end the official segment there. So I'll do a quick outro, but I'd like to keep talking to you on the live for a little bit, if that's all right.
Sure.
That was Alex Jørgensen talking about the Epstein files and the implications for top Norwegian diplomats. And a quick update on Gaza as well, and the expansionist policies of Israel. Is there anything you want to link to in the bottom of this video that people can check out?
I just want to ask German police when I travel to Germany next month, be easy on me.
Yeah. All right.
I'm just a journalist.
I'll make sure to forward that one. Okay. I'm gonna ask you as well to join via a new link because the free version is expiring here.
It's gonna end. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll see you in a second.
I got it from you. Yep.
All right. I'll leave this one then. Yes, so that was Alex Jørgensen. Oh, I'm on the screen here. 1 second. Let's see if we can get him to come back, because I feel like we still have some things to talk about. 1 second here, guys. Yeah, and this is, we're back to live streaming. So if anyone has any questions, now is the time for Alex. Then now is the time to ask them. Let's see if you can join back. 1 second here. Yeah. Good. 1 second. Let me join with the camera as well, so you can see me.
Yes.
Go. Yeah. So that was a really nice interview. I think we did quite well. We were speaking quite fast.
It was really good. Yeah.
Covering a lot of topics.
Yeah, so many things to talk about. It's usually, especially these topics, because it's like what you said when I told you that we needed an alternative, and said that's what we're trying to do. I mean, it's the problem is you don't have a space to, like, if I go to a regular famous newspaper, I used to write articles, but there are articles with one click they'll tell you yes, of course. These sort of topics, no one would want to, in the big media, want to listen to. They just think we're a bunch of extreme leftists who have nothing to do in life but to just which is actually, on the contrary, we are the people who knows the truth. Yeah. And we are the people who really trying to make a change. Not because, if they think about it, they always claim you're a communist, you're whatever. I love Norway, and I love Lebanon, and Norway is a country that I feel loyal to, and I want Norway to become much better. And I want it's a country. It offered me help. It gave me protection. It gave me a lot of things because of that love of Norway. But also I love humanity.
Right.
And so there should be not just this idea of thinking of Norway and Europe. No, I love Norway. I want it to get better, but I also wanted a country that respects humanity and other countries. And also
Yeah.
care about other struggles.
But I will say, I will go a step further. I will say it's even if I had no love for humanity, luckily I do, but even if I had no love for humanity and my only interests were nationalism, being from Denmark, I mean, we see what happens when you pursue a purely selfish nationalist and colonial ideology, because as soon as Russia comes knocking on the door, or as soon as America comes knocking on the door, there is no justification to stop them. What are you going to say? That they're breaking international law, that they are invading a country and using too much force? This falls completely flat to the world. Like, no one in the world takes you seriously when you appeal to them after what we've done in Gaza, in the West Bank, in Lebanon, and so on, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And now it's like you want to convince people you've been arresting for the last few years for protesting for Palestine. Now you want to convince them that, oh, you have to stand up with Denmark because like someone is trying to occupy your land. But this like double moral approach we have, you have to be true to yourself, to your people. So when you face such a situation, you don't look like a liar, hypocrite who just like needs people to save his ass in dark times.
Yeah. No, this is for me, it's a survival mechanism, as you're saying. We won't survive under our current countries if we continue pursuing this colonial mindset. It's simply impossible. I mean, one day China's going to be able to bully anyone they want in the way that we've been doing, you know? And when that time comes, what example do we want to leave behind to history?
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, Alex, thank you so much for joining. It's always, we've only talked twice, but it's been fantastic both times. I'm sure I will invite you back soon enough when something crazy happens. And
sure.
Feel free to send me anything as well that you think would be interesting along the way.
We'll keep in touch.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you for inviting me. It was really nice.
Yes, no worries.
And thank you for the good work you do also. Like, you do something really important. Don't take it for granted. And I have this theory I always go with. Doesn't matter. We're not doing what we do for applause or recognition or views or followers. You're doing that because that's what you believe in. Because we have something in Arabic, it says as-sakit an al-haq shaytan akhras, and then it literally means if you turn a blind eyes and you silence on atrocity and oppression, you're partner in it, you're complicit in it. So for history, what you're doing is really important, not to be complicit.
Thank you, and I will say the same back to you. And I am just starting compared to you. That you have a longer career to speak for your accomplishments. So that means a lot coming from someone like yourself. Definitely.
Thank you. Good luck. We'll talk later.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right. So that was Alex Jørgensen. One last time. He's an independent journalist. You can find him on Instagram. He does a lot of seminars. He does a lot of articles as well. He has written for some larger Norwegian publications, but I know that because of some falling out, he doesn't really want to be associated with them right now, which is more than fair. I won't mention those if he doesn't want me to. Let's see, what else do we have on the agenda today? I think very quickly, we were talking about these AI cities. Maybe we can quickly show you what that looks like. Yeah, I'll just show you this picture quickly, and I think I need size here for you before we start this segment. Give me 1 second, guys. I was cropping mid-interview because I didn't foresee that the whole format would change. I don't know what happened to OBS there halfway through. So just give me 1 second here to edit the transformation here. Put this one down to 0. There you go. And let me make myself a bit smaller again because I am ridiculously big. Cat is now also complaining. There's everything is happening at once. Just give me 1 second, guys, to edit here myself so that you can see a little bit more of the top there. Yes. So yeah, this is the AI cities that the Gaza plan that this little demon here on the right is putting forward. The Marco Rubio, or Narco Rubio, as we like to call him. Yeah, let me know if there's any questions in the chat before we move on to the last topic, which is South America. I would love to answer your questions as we go along. I didn't know if we were gonna have enough time for this, but I do have half an hour left. So we've been going for, what is it, 2 hours and a half now. So let's do this last one. Because there's, as I said, there's so many topics every week that it's almost hard to choose from in today's day and age. So last one, we're gonna be talking about South America. I think I called this one the Don Road Doctrine, starving Cuba while bailing out Argentina. And that's exactly what we're gonna be talking about. Yeah, so let me start the recording. Let me see how I want to introduce this. Okay, yeah, I'm ready. And this one is going to be fun, guys. I have a lot of clips lined up that we can watch. So it's a bit more interactive as well. And of course, I'm half Bolivian, so I do have a little bit of skin in the game and a bit of first-hand understanding of how South America works. So obviously, I want to talk about these guys here. Okay, let me start the next segment here. Donald Trump has announced a complete blockade of Cuba, or Donald Trump has been blockading Cuba for the last month, and that means that there is no fuel, medicine, or food entering Cuba, very much like how the Israelis do in Gaza. In this video, we're going to talk about why that is, what he's trying to achieve in Cuba, and also some other news from South American countries, and the stark contrast between how he treats the socialist state of Cuba by trying to starve them to death, while at the same time bailing out the anarcho-capitalist regime of Argentina. So there's a stark contrast there that I think we should go through and explore together. So first things first, let's pull up Donald Trump bragging about this. As I always like to say, the only thing that keeps me sane in today's day and age is that the Americans brag about what they're doing, so I no longer look crazy when I'm trying to report on it. So this is a YouTube clip of Donald Trump. I think it was just a few days ago, talking about what he's doing in Cuba. Have a listen.
Cuba is right now a failed nation, and they don't even have jet fuel to get for airplanes to take off. They're clogging up their runway. We're talking to Cuba right now, and Marco Rubio talking to Cuba right now, and they should absolutely make a deal because it's truly a humanitarian threat.
So he's talking here about the humanitarian crisis happening in Cuba. And he's fully right. And there is a humanitarian crisis happening in Cuba. But it didn't come out of nowhere. It's because this orange man right here ordered it, manufactured it. Just like the crisis in Iran, just like the starvation in Gaza, Donald Trump is blockading Cuba in order to cause famine and desperation, a humanitarian catastrophe, as he himself is saying.
And we have a lot of great Cuban Americans, and they're going to be very happy when they're going to be able to go back and say hello to their relatives and do things that they should have been allowed to do for a long time. I'm very interested in the people that are here that were treated so badly by Castro and the Cuban authorities. They have been treated horribly. So we'll see how it all turns out. But Cuba and us, we are talking. In the meantime, there's an embargo. There's no oil, there's no money, there's no anything.
So there you go, his famous embargo. There's no oil, there's no money, there's no anything. And for those of you joining us on the live stream, we started today by talking a little bit about Iran and how there's no oil and no US dollars in Iran, both of which are controlled by the Americans, right? So this is a global pattern that we see unfolding every time the Americans want to dominate another country. The first step is making you dependent on the US dollar and US oil. And you can only buy oil internationally through the US dollar. And then what they do, the second step is, if you don't comply with all of their demands and subjugate your country to the Americans, then they implement blockades through manipulation of the dollar currency and oil. So you don't have dollars to run your economy, meaning that you cannot buy anything, and you don't have oil to run the vehicles that we all need to move around, right? So in Cuba, for example, that is that is everything, right? That's basic transportation, that's healthcare, that's food supplies, that's the garbage collection. Everything in Cuba has come to a halt, and the embargo also means that there is no food. So let's have a look here at what Al Jazeera is saying about it. So from blackouts to food shortages, how U.S. blockade is crippling life in Cuba. U.S. pressure pushes island nation to U.S. Pressure pushes island nations 11 million people to the brink as Cuba imposes emergency measures amid fuel crisis. So you can see here the Cuban people waiting for this bus because there's almost no transportation at the moment, right? The U.S. oil blockade is causing severe energy crisis in Cuba as the government has been forced to ration fuel and cut electricity for many hours a day, paralyzing life in the communist-ruled island nation of 11 million. Bus stops are empty. The families are turning to wood and coal for cooking, living through near constant power outages amid economic crisis worsened by the Trump administration. I'm not sure if there is. I think there was something down here that was quite interesting. Oh yeah, why has the U.S. blocked oil to Cuba? Decades of strict U.S. economic sanctions against Cuba, the largest island nation in the Caribbean, have destroyed its economy and isolated it from the international trade. Cuba relied on foreign allies for oil shipments, such as Mexico, Russia, and Venezuela. And of course, Venezuela recently being conquered by the Americans, they no longer are sending any oil to Cuba. I think there was something more interesting here at some point. I think that's all I want to show from this article. So that's just to give you an idea of the impact that we're seeing. And of course, the reason that this is happening, in case you didn't know, is because Cuba is a communist country. So what does that mean? Anytime a country pursues their democratic right, their sovereign right to implement left-leaning policies, whether that's social democracy, socialism, or in this case communism, they are completely and utterly blockaded by the Americans, and the Americans make sure to manufacture collapse in those economies. And this also goes beyond, by the way. It's either if you try to implement left-leaning policies or if you try to implement anti-colonial policies. Both of them lead to the same result. The main person who is pushing for this is Marco Rubio. And the reason why I call him Marco Rubio is because he's a little bit of a cokehead. And if you don't believe me, just look at this famous clip.
Vladimir Putin today. I thought you were introducing yourself. No.
So the little nose itch there, very classic cokehead behavior, being overly talkative.
Definitely not. Vladimir Putin.
What are you doing here?
Nick Schiffer in PBS NewsHour. Vladimir Putin had his own end-of-year press conference today.
Oh, he's trying to step on my message.
Yeah. His went, I think, 4 hours. So we got at least 3 hours. And he said he was willing to end the war in Ukraine.
I bet you he didn't do it in Spanish.
So he's not even letting the guy finish his question, right? But anyways, this guy, I just wanted to pull up a picture of him and show you that he's a little bit of a cokehead. This guy, Marco Rubio, is a descendant of Cuba, and he is a descendant of the rich owning class in Cuba, which was outed by the communist regime. So obviously, he has a long-lasting gripe against the communist regime in Cuba, mainly that they dethroned his family from power, right? And many families like him. So never forget that when you're talking to South Americans, sorry, I'm just trying to fit this properly. Never forget that when you're talking to South Americans about socialism and communism, in many cases, the people you're talking to are the ex-ruling class that was outed by the socialists. And of course, the socialists outed them because they were terrible leaders of their country. They were terrible authoritarian people who deprived their populations of basic democratic and human rights. In the case of Narco Rubio, the people that used to work at his grandfather's ranches in Cuba were basically living under slave-like conditions, and this is what the socialist movements in South America put an end to. And that is why they are being punished. So the Americans want to take over Cuba, and like they always do, they engineer a humanitarian crisis in order to force the people there to basically bend the knee to the Americans. And why would the Cuban people do that? Well, if you have no more food, you're either too weak to fight, or you're so desperate that you don't want to fight. You say, fuck it, let's just become American. He is so Narco Rubio is the Secretary of State for Latin America, not officially, but virtually. He's the one who's running all of these policies. He's a huge neocon. He's the one who he was sanctioned by the Chinese government twice since 2020 and is banned from entering China. So that's just to give you an idea that this person in particular is very hawkish when it comes to South America and imperialism. And it's not a coincidence that he's working for Donald Trump on the case of South America. He also had a speech recently in Europe. I don't think I want to play it all for you, but we can have a look. So
Thank you.
This was a 30-minute speech. I'll let it play until we get a feel for it, and then I'll pause and just say what this has to do with Europe.
Thank you very much. We gather here today as members of a historic alliance, an alliance that saved and changed the world. You know, when this conference began in 1963, it was in a nation, actually it was on a continent, that was divided against itself. The line between communism and freedom ran through the heart of Germany. The first barbed fences of the Berlin Wall had gone up just 2 years prior. And just months before that first conference, before our predecessors first met here in Munich, the Cuban...
So already it's been, 41 seconds, and he already mentioned communism, right? So the crutches of this speech that he gave in Munich is to unify the Americans and the Europeans. And what does he use as his rallying cry for unification? Well, anti-communism. And, sorry, I think the video disappeared here. He uses anti-communism and, of course, our supposed shared culture of white Christian values. Let's listen to a bit more of him here. And by the way, let me roll it back a bit. He right away brings up the Cuban Missile Crisis.
The first barbed fences of the Berlin Wall had gone up just 2 years prior. And just months before that first conference, before our predecessors first met here in Munich, the Cuban Missile Crisis had brought the world to the brink of nuclear destruction. Even as World War II still burned fresh in the memory of Americans and Europeans alike.
And by the way, the Cuban Missile Crisis was because the Americans put atomic weapons in Turkey aimed at the USSR. And then the USSR said, okay, game is game. We're going to put atomic weapons in Cuba aimed at the US. And that was a whole crisis, right? That, yeah, you can ask your parents about if you're in my generation.
We found ourselves staring down the barrel of a new global catastrophe. One with the potential for a new kind of destruction, more apocalyptic and final than anything before in the history of mankind. The time of that first gathering, Soviet communism was on the march. Thousands of years of Western civilization hung in the balance. At that time,
again, Eastern Soviet communism was on the march, and thousands of years of Western civilization hung in the balance. So this is just to show you the ideology of this guy who is in charge of the policies of the American regime in South America. He very clearly states on no uncertain terms that Western culture is unable to be, is impossible to fit within the framework of communism, which is strange because communism is a Western ideology. Karl Marx was a German. He was from this same country, right? His ideology spread through the Bolsheviks to Russia and created the USSR. but it is originally a Western ideology. And I would argue that it is a representation of the Western ideology that a lot of people, especially my parents' generation, actually see as the core value of European values, which is to take care of your neighbors, to build a society that works for all, not just for the few. But of course, to the Americans, this is seen as antithetical to white Christian European values. And in this speech, by the way, he goes on to basically call for, he basically calls to for Europe and America to rejoin forces in order to recolonize the global South. I'm not sure exactly where that is, so I'm not going to go through it, but I just want to show you the reaction from the European leaders.
Together awaits. Thank you.
The reaction from the European leaders, here you have a lot of familiar faces, is of course a standing ovation. Look at them. Look at these little dogs standing up one at a time, going, "Yes, America, yes, we shall reconquer the world together. Thank God for you coming here to Munich and telling us that communism is bad and that we need to work harder and be more capitalist." Literally a standing ovation from the European dogs. Look at this.
Mr. Secretary, I'm not sure you heard the sigh of relief through this hall when we were just listening to what I would interpret as a message of reassurance, of partnership. You spoke of intertwined.
I'm going to stop this guy here, but I just need to make this crystal clear to you guys before we jump into the rest of the news in South America, right? You have Marco Rubio goes to Munich. He says, white Christian culture is a combined effort between the Americans and the Europeans. We should rejoin forces under that banner, under white Christian nationalism, and we should recolonize the global South and fight against communism, okay? And the response from the Europeans is, thank you. We were waiting for a message like this. The whole talk around Greenland and about colonizing Europe was really starting to scare us. Thank God that you came back so that we could breathe this sigh of relief, knowing that we're back to order, to business as usual, which is, you know, this joint effort between the Americans and the Europeans to dominate the world. So that's kind of the overall posture that we see in South America towards communism, or should I say anyone who tries to take care of its people in a sovereign way and stop resource extraction. Of course, we also had Venezuela, another socialist regime where the people there, the government there, didn't want the Americans to steal all of their oil. And what did the Americans do? Trump went in, kidnapped the president, and now they're taking their oil for free. I think next to show this stark contrast between how a communist or socialist regime in South America is treated versus a anarcho-capitalist regime, we should bring up Argentina. Second here. Sorry, I thought the cat wanted to jump on the table or something, but no, the cat is just complaining. I think she wants food, but she already has food. Not sure what she's looking for. Anyways, let's look at Argentina, right? So Argentina just had these labor reforms, and I found this article which summarizes it quite well. The cat is now on the table, and I think you see the tail there. Okay. Apparently, she also finds Argentina very interesting. So what passed in Argentina? So in Argentina, general strike targets Milei's labor reform that strips rights. The bill has already passed in the Senate and will be voted on in the chamber this Thursday. Government promises to repress protests. Well, that's fantastic news. These 3 points here, these 4 points. what it will do is it will reduce severance pay. It will allow payments in goods or services. So that means you no longer need to be paid for your work in a real salary. Instead, you will be paid in food or in housing or similar in commodities, basically. And it extends the workday up to 12 hours, which means that now if you show up to work at 9 a.m., you're going home at 9 p.m. And of course, par for the course, it also limits the right to strike. So if you, for whatever reason, are not happy working 12 hours a day and you want to strike, then you will not be allowed to do so. So this is just to give you an idea of the alternative or the far right in South America and what that looks like when it finally takes power in your country, right? So if you go for the left option, your government gets overthrown by the Americans, you get starved, like the Cubans are being starved. And at the same time, if you then go for the alternative on the right, then what you end up with are 12-hour work days, with little to no labor rights, and in many cases no democratic rights either. Alex Jørgensen in the chat, thanks for still being here after the interview. He says all those Europeans who applauded are like stray dogs. I'm not sure they're stray dogs. I think they're heavily tied on a leash, on a very tight leash by the Americans. They know who their owner is. I don't think they have the freedom to act like a stray dog. So yeah, let's see. There was this live stream going. I'm not sure if it ended. Yeah, it did end. Let me show you some pictures from the actual protests. You can see what's going on. This is because obviously the Argentinian people are not gonna accept this. They have a long history of protesting such labor reforms, and this is just a quick clip to show you what's happening on the ground. Look at these little piglets just shoving one after the other a canister into the shotguns and shooting it directly at the people. I mean, they're probably using less than lethal rounds, right? So rubber-coated steel bullets. But still, I mean, look, the hog is a universal phenomenon. Look at these hogs here just shooting bullets directly into the people. And of course, what you see there, right? Let me make myself smaller. You know what I'm talking about? That's the communist flag. Because the workers who want good, equal, who want an equal society with equal opportunity and good working conditions, are protesting against the far right government of Argentina. But the story is, of course, if this group was allowed to take power, if their democratic voice was heard, and they actually elected this flag into power, then they would get starved out and blockaded just like Cuba is being starved right now.
Vinimos a protestar por lo obvio.
She's going to talk a little bit about why they're protesting. Wait. Sorry, I'm trying to move the cat out the way. Okay.
A defender lo obvio, que son los derechos laborales que nos quiere arrebatar el gobierno de Javier Milei, que lamentablemente con la complicidad de los gobernadores en esa Cámara de Lores están pactando la entrega más grande de los últimos 70, 80 años de la Argentina.
So she's complaining about how the government reforms are causing a lot of hardship on the economy and now also the labor regulations. Yeah, this is what I wanted to show. So you can see here how the rubber bullet hit this man directly in the face. So anytime they try to convince you that what the Europeans and the Americans do in South America is in the protection of the democratic rights of the people, You know that they are lying because look at this man. Shot in the face for protesting. Protesting what? The right to only work 8 hours a day instead of 12. And the right to receive money when you work. Right? Like this should not be a extremist idea. But the only people who are able to supply these rights in South America are historically always the socialists. So I say that to explain to you that South America has a particular dynamic. The only ones who have ever been able to bring sovereignty and good living conditions to the people of South America are the socialists, because the alternative is this: a man bleeding from underneath his eye because he was shot in the face for protesting the right to receive money when you go to work instead of a kilo of meat and 2 days of housing, right? And the right to go home at 5 p.m. instead of 9 p.m. Because who the hell wants to work for 12 hours a day? I want to quickly show you this second angle, which just shows a bit the scale that we're seeing. This is going to be an image from the sky, I believe. I got the right one here. Yeah. So you can see there how the police lines and the protest lines interact. Yeah, it's been a crazy few days or a week now in Argentina. This lady, of course, suffering from tear gas. And yeah, it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. This is the image of these are the people being supported by the Americans and the Europeans in South America. This is what Western democracy brings to your country. You have to go to work for 12 hours a day. You don't get paid. And if you try to protest it, you get shot in the face. That's we shouldn't be surprised, right? With ICE in America now, it's also coming home to us. You know, if we protest Palestine here in the Netherlands or in Germany, you also get a similar treatment from the police. So I guess nothing really changed. Yeah, so let's look at Milei, because the justification for all of this is, of course, that that all of this is supposed to bring some sort of economic boom for the Argentinians, right? That all of this is in the name of capitalism being a superior economic model, and therefore creating more jobs, more economic opportunity for everyone. So let's look first of all at his worldview. So this is Milei, the president who ordered these reforms, explaining to Lex Friedman what his worldview is. And I believe it's already dubbed in English, so I don't have to translate for you guys. Let's have a look. I am so sorry. I just realized the audio was not on. So you guys were just sitting in silence for a little bit. I'm going to skip over the question from Lex Friedman. He basically asks very straightforward, what is your economic ideology?
Lay it all out. What's your economics philosophy today?
Strictly speaking, I am an anarcho-capitalist. I despise the state government. I despise violence. Let us suppose we take the definition of liberalism. I usually use the definition of liberalism given by Alberto Venegas Linchijo, which is very much in line with the definition of John Locke, which essentially matches the definition by Alberto Venegas Lynch Jr., who said that liberalism is the unrestricted respect for the life project of others based on the principle of non-aggression and in defense of the right.
So now he's going to go into a whole rant that is 10 minutes long. You can view that if you want to verify my claims on his ideology. But you should just know that he is an anarcho-capitalist, is what he says himself. And if you need any more proof before we dissect what that means, let me just show you how crazy this man is. He fully believes in this ideology so much that he created a persona called Captain ANCAP, so Captain Anarcho-Capitalism. And this is him a few years before getting elected as the president of Argentina, performing as this supposed persona. Here you go.
Gastar y gastar y gastar y gastar, esa es nuestra regla fiscal. Y si los ingresos no aguantarán más, ahí iremos al Banco Central. Y eso será inflacionario, y eso será inflacionario. Si no le aflojan al gasto, entonces la crisis vendrá. ¡Viva la libertad, carajo!
So yeah, if you didn't catch the lyrics there, what he's singing about is that spending in the public sector by the government only leads to inflation. And once you're out of money, you're going to go to the central bank and get more money, which is going to lead to more spending, which is going to lead to even more inflation. So all of this, it kind of summarizes his worldview, which is basically that the state is bad. And what does he mean by anarcho-capitalism? Because capitalism on its own is just limiting the impact of government, making sure that there is no government to regulate the economy, and to make sure that basically the private companies are able to operate without limitations, right? For example, they don't legally have to pay you, which is what he just introduced into the law. However, classic capitalists will argue that there are certain market failures that can occur under capitalism. The main one being monopoly, for example. A monopoly is considered a failed market, under a market failure under many of the capitalist ideologues that he mentioned in his answer. However, the reason he goes one step further is because he believes in anarcho-capitalism, which says that no, even in those situations, there should be no state that exists to regulate the private markets. Essentially saying that anarchism is the best approach when it comes to government. We should have anarchy, but within a private market. So there should be absolutely no government spending, no government programs, and the only thing that should exist are private companies. He meant that, and since he took power in Argentina, he's cut 15,000 jobs. He also stopped supplying public programs, including, for example, to disabled children. But this is all public programs, by the way, have suffered immensely under this guy. So I'm going to show you a brutal example of what his ideology does. But this is just one, right? There's many other public sectors that have been cut. This one here that I'm going to show you is just simply one example from one government agency, right?
Stefania Acevedo San Francisco is 13 years old. He's struggling with a medical disorder that affects the muscles and joints and relies on therapies provided with the help of the Argentine state. But now Stefania says she's filled with uncertainty because of the impact of Javier Milei's economic austerity plan.
For now, his treatments continue, but we don't know what is going to happen. We are seeing so many people whose benefits were taken. The government says they are an expense, that we are thieves for receiving assistance. Now we see that corruption is not in our homes, but in the government.
Since taking office, the government requested internal audits on people receiving government subsidies and has suspended the benefits of tens of thousands. But now a new accusation has Javier Milei and his sister Karina at the center of a controversy involving the Disabled Services Agency.
Public outrage is growing after a series of audio recordings from a former government officials exposed.
Yeah, we don't need to go into the corruption allegations here, but just know that this is the real world impact that his policies have, right? If you have no government, then people who are not able to work, they die, right? If you're a child and you can't work and your parents can't afford to feed you, you die. If you're old and your body is too frail to go to work, you die. If you're sick, if you're handicapped, so on, so on, so on. But all of this is, of course, done in the name of economic growth. So I want to show you, right, that at the same time that all of this is being promoted as the only way forward for Argentina for economic growth, still, we have not seen even that economic growth that we're supposedly supposed to be seeing as a result of these policies. So Milei took office here in December 2023. So that's right here. And you can see, leading up to Milei taking office, this is the inflation rate we're looking at. Of course, inflation was going up quite a bit. For example, 115% inflation. That's terrible, right? Why was that inflation there? Well, because the government was spending a lot of money they don't have. Why don't they have that money? Because they refuse to tax the rich. But once Milei came into office, look at this, December, the following months saw an absolute explosion. The following year, actually, saw an absolute explosion in inflation. And although it's come down now, it's still at 32%. So people are not earning money at work. There's no social programs giving money to people, meaning that demand is at an all-time low, which is already terrible for the people, right? Because it means they have no money to buy things. And still, under those conditions, inflation continues. So he has not even achieved the bare minimum that you would expect to achieve under his ideology. Furthermore, let's look at unemployment, for example, in the last 5 years. So again, you see a similar pattern, right? We had higher unemployment under COVID, of course, but after COVID, it starts to come down to an acceptable level. 6% is still quite high, but it's not crazy, you know? Then he joins office, and again, we see unemployment go up a bit. Let me compare it to 10 years ago. Still, you see this trend here. Obviously, Argentina has had a rough patch back here before COVID, and during COVID, we see the spike. But look, the trend since he joined office in Q4 2023 is still for unemployment to steadily go up. So let's see. In any case, it has not helped the situation in Argentina to elect this guy. Last thing I want to show you is just the GDP, because if nothing else, you would expect that at least the GDP would be going up, right? And no, what we see here in the last 5 years, again, he enters here, Q4 2023, still GDP has not skyrocketed, it's not doing amazing, it's still completely stable, and people are becoming hungrier and hungrier whilst losing their government benefits and their jobs at the same time. And the people that still have jobs are not getting paid. So incredible culmination, right? And now let me pull up the GDP again, actually, because for this next topic, because you might be looking at this and thinking, okay, sure, but you seem a lot more angry than you should be because it doesn't seem that terrible, right? Like compared to some of the previous years or quarters here in 2024 where we had negative growth, or actually, sorry, this is during Milei's time. Let me correct. Yeah, for example, right? Compared to 2015 to 2020 before Milei, the numbers here don't look terrible, right? Catch a sip of water before I continue my rant. And yeah, the numbers don't look terrible, but this is despite an American bailout to the tune of 500 million, or I think it was 500 billion. I've been talking for 3 hours, guys. Give me a break. Well, yeah. So, needless to say, we look at the last 3 years, right, since he took office. There was a short boost because after he took office, well, okay, let's go step by step. He takes office here. Economic recession. It gets a bit better because all of the private capitalist class is like, okay, it's time to invest in Argentina. Okay? They continue investing, so it goes up by quite a bit. But then it starts to fall because, of course, if you don't invest in education, healthcare, housing, and everything your society needs, of course, eventually the working class is not going to have money to buy things in the economy, so your GDP is going to fall. And that starts to happen. And then we arrive at Q2 2025 and Q3, where the economy is being very weak all of a sudden, right? And this is when Donald Trump decides to bail them out. So I need you to understand that the numbers we are looking at are skewed because they would have been way worse if they did not receive a free bailout from the exterior. So maybe they're not taking loans from the IMF anymore, but they are getting free money from the Americans. And what does that bailout look like? Let me show you here. Sorry, I clicked. Okay, it was not 500. Sorry, it was not 500 million or 500 billion. It's 20 billion. Trump's Argentina bailout enriches one well-connected U.S. billionaire. A 20 billion U.S. rescue package is a gift for a hedge fund manager with ties to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. I'm not gonna read all of this because I think we already know how this works, right? The Epstein class look after each other. All I need you to know, maybe let's read the first part. Last week, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent announced a 20 billion package to rescue the Argentinian economy. The risky taxpayer-financed deal, which involves trading US dollar for Argentinian peso, has little upside for ordinary Americans. Argentina is not a significant US trading partner, and its economy long in turmoil has little impact on the United States. So this is just a giveaway, right? And there is no benefit to the Americans, but simply because the people in governments in Argentina are right-wing and are ideologically aligned with the American empire, they get this huge bailout because they need to make sure that socialism does not take over South America like it did in Cuba. So not only do they make sure to sabotage any socialist countries, they also make sure to take care of any right-wing countries with anything they need, whether that's military, economic support, or anything in between. So yeah, I don't think I have much else to say about Argentina. I just wanted to highlight that shady connection there, and to also explain that the reason why right-wing it's so important for the Americans to have these right-wing governments in Argentina is because a lot of the billionaires in America invest in these right-wing countries expecting the economy to boom. And when it doesn't, because right-wing capitalism is detrimental to the economy, then they bail it out, right? So they're manipulating the market, right? You invest money in a market that is unstable, knowing that later on it will get bailed out by your president, in this case Donald Trump, because you guys are buddy. And this is the way that the Americans run the world, basically. And if anyone tries to stop you, then you starve them like they're doing in Cuba. Completely unrelated. No, I'm not gonna get into that one. Talking about that alternative left-wing point of view being stopped by the Americans, Gustavo Petro, who is the president of Colombia, who is also a socialist president. He's not full socialist, though. He's like a regular leftist, right? So he believes in social programs, in developing the economy through taking care of your people first and foremost. But even he has been targeted by the Americans, right? So Donald Trump threatened to take him out after Maduro because he was quite pissed off that Gustavo Petro, the Colombian president, was calling out his pedophile regime and was talking against his actions against Venezuela. So this is what Pedro said just this week.
Esta ya es la reunión para eso, pero ponerlo por escrito. Ese duraba un tiempo ahí, entonces ya era una menos.
This first part I'm not going to translate because he's talking about something else, but here we go.
I come from a few days not in the arms of love, but escaping being killed.
So he just announced 2 days ago that there was an assassination attempt against him. Have a listen.
That's why last night I couldn't make it. For 2 hours, I couldn't land where I said we had to land. And they didn't even turn on the lights where we were supposed to land. Then, in the morning, I couldn't land where I had to land because I feared they were going to shoot at the helicopter. With my children too. I did what I know how to do. So we headed out to open sea for 4 hours. And I arrived where I wasn't supposed to arrive, but I arrived. And here I am, like this.
You can tell that he's visibly shaken, by the way, in that little clip there. So yeah, there was an assassination attempt against the president, most likely because he is a left-leaning guy who is anti-imperialist and likes to take care of his people. So just like in Cuba, they do everything they can to get rid of you. And it was probably Donald Trump. As I said, Trump has threatened him before, so here you go. This is coming straight out of the devil's mouth.
President Donald Trump has suggested potential U.S. military action against Colombia and warned Mexico to get its act together. He also reiterated a threat to send...
And why Mexico? Because Mexico also have a leftist leader, right? So anyone in South America who elects democratically a leftist government, all of a sudden they're being threatened to be invaded by the Americans.
The military back to Venezuela if, in his words, it doesn't behave. His comments come a day after American forces captured and detained Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro in a surprise attack on Caracas. Maduro and his wife are due to appear in court on drug-related charges in New York later on Monday. Speaking to reporters on Air Force One, Trump insisted the U.S. is in charge, in his words, of Venezuela, even though the country's Supreme Court has appointed the vice president as interim leader.
You just sounded like you weighed out another strike, another land strike, at least in Venezuela. You sound like you weighed that out. But
well, we didn't need it. We were prepared to do a second strike if we needed it. We're totally prepared.
But that's off the table.
We're still prepared.
That's off the table now.
No, it's not. If they don't behave, we will do a second strike.
Now, Trump also suggested Colombia could face military action unless it curbs the flow of illicit drugs to the United States. Listen.
Colombia is very sick, too, run by a sick man who likes making cocaine and selling it to the United States. And he's not going to be doing it very long, let me tell you.
What does that mean? He's not going to be doing it very long.
He's not doing it very long. He has cocaine mills and cocaine factories. He's not going to be doing it very long.
Yeah, so the American pedophile regime, who probably love taking drugs before they do God knows what to children, is very concerned about Gustavo Petro for producing cocaine. Now, you can either be an idiot and believe that all of this has to do with narco trafficking, or you can look at this clip and maybe take this as an explanation for why Donald Trump is really going after Gustavo Petro, president of Colombia.
¿Qué lista aparece el señor Andrés Pastrana? La lista, no digo que aparece.
He's talking about one of, I think, of the Colombian right-wing politicians saying that he appeared in the Epstein files.
La lista aparece de amigo de Epstein.
He appeared as a friend of Epstein.
Y ahora se amarra el negocio. Un clan de pedófilos quiere acabar la democracia en Colombia.
A clan of pedophiles want to end the democracy in Colombia, is what he's saying. And of course, when Donald Trump saw that this man was talking like this, he had to do something about it and threatened to kill him. And just coincidentally, a few weeks later, he is targeted for assassination.
Duro, sí. Pero ahí está la realidad.
He's saying that's harsh, but there is the truth.
Y para que no salga la lista, entonces nos envían acorazados a matar pescadores de...
And so that the Epstein list doesn't go out, he is sending us to kill fishermen in Curacao, right? So off the coast, in the Caribbean coast, what Donald Trump was doing to Venezuela before he invaded the country.
Y amenazar al vecino que si dictador o no, ¿cómo que el pueblo de Colombia va a aplaudir que invadan a su hermano, que no es el presidente, sino el pueblo de Venezuela?
And he's saying here that the Americans were demanding for them to join their invasion on Venezuela, or at least not interfere against it. And he's saying, how could the people of Colombia do this to their brothers in Venezuela? and the president, who is not just the president, but represents the people of Venezuela.
¿Cuándo seríamos así de traidores y de vendidos, de que nuestra propia sangre la traicionamos, o el pueblo del Ecuador o el pueblo de Panamá?
And here comes the real reason why the Americans would love to kill this man, because he's saying, in what world would we betray our own South American blood, whether that's in Ecuador or in Panama or in Venezuela?
O el pueblo de Venezuela no es nuestro propio pueblo.
It is the same as our own people. And this sort of pan-South American ideology, this anti-American imperialism, this pro-sovereignty take, is why him, the Cuban people, the Venezuelan people continue to suffer under the American military boot. And I think that's all I want to say for this video. I've also been live streaming for 3 hours, guys, so I'm getting a bit tired. I think we started off a bit rough in this video, but hopefully it makes sense to you at the end. I just wanted to highlight the contrast between how the Americans treat leftist leaders versus right-wing leaders, make it clear to you that it has nothing to do with democracy, and the only thing they care about is imperialism. If anyone is anti-imperial, which in South America is tied to socialism, then they get the American boot, they get oppressed, and as long as, and if a country elects or has a right-wing dictator, then they get nothing but bailouts, loves, and kisses from the Americans. And of course, for my European audience, that includes, or Europe is included in that picture by being loyal followers of the American agenda and doing the same in those countries, right? When the US says we're going to blockade Venezuela, we're going to blockade Cuba, the Europeans say, yes, of course, we shall do that. And when the Americans say we need to bail out a right-wing government in Argentina, of course, the Europeans are happy to follow along. So that's it. We are not funded by anyone. We're fully independent. If you like what you see, subscribe, follow us on Instagram, Upscrolled, and everywhere else. I'm gonna stop the live now as well. So thank you guys for joining along. For those of you who joined live, this was a 3-hour broadcast. And yeah, I hope I can talk to you guys soon. In the meantime, see you on social media. Okay, I ended the video there. I did say I was going to end the stream, but just in case, I'll give it 10 seconds in case there's any questions. But I think, yeah, people are starting to leave anyways. All right, it's been a long one. Another legendary live stream over here on a Saturday. What is it? A bit over 3 hours? God damn, that's a long one. Okay, take care, guys. Don't forget to eat your fruits and veggies, and I will see you in 2 weeks' time. Bye-bye.